Thank you for joining us on this election night on 13 Plus. I'm Juliet Dragos.
And I'm Josh Alburtus. We will be live here until 11, breaking down results as they come in and hearing from experts.
Tonight, 13 is on your side of this election night with our crews spread out throughout the entire state. Lauren Baker is in Novi, keeping an eye on the Mike Rogers for Senate campaign. Julia Gorman's in Detroit with the Alyssa Slotkin campaign.
Here in West Michigan, Micah Cho is in Byron Township, Callie Lichter is in Muskegon County, Jeremiah Brown is focusing on Grand Rapids, and Arlena Holland is in Kent County.
Most of the polls in Michigan close in just about 1 hour from now, 8 o'clock. Political reporter Josh Alburtus is here now in the Election Center with what we can expect on today's biggest race, of course, the one for president. Josh.
Big Juliet at the top of everyone's mind today, and you just saw me working on it because there's a lot to get done tonight. Latest forecasting from 538 puts this exactly where we'd expect it to be, basically 50-50, but why is that? That's what's in play. Let's break it down. We've been looking at 7 battlegrounds most likely to decide the election. Forecasting puts former President Donald Trump with an edge in many of the southern battlegrounds in Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, and it puts Harris with an edge in Wisconsin and Michigan. And it's 50-50 as of this morning in Nevada and Pennsylvania. Battlegrounds, let's say all of those battlegrounds go the way that they're leaning. That would leave it all down really essentially to the 50-50 state of Pennsylvania. Nevada would be a plus in that scenario for anyone, but it just wouldn't have enough electoral college votes to make that final difference. So that's the state of the race nationally. But here in Michigan, it's a battleground. It's battlegrounds within battlegrounds here. You look at Kent County. We've been talking about this for months. Grand Rapids' Kent County is at the top of that list. Hundreds of thousands of people in the county of President Jerry Ford, historically a Republican fortress. If you look back to just 20 years ago, the GOP really dominated on the presidential level in elections here. It went very narrowly for Barack Obama in 2008, but then somewhat rebounded in 2012. But then you look at the Trump era, slimmer margin the first time, but still a win in 2016. But then a complete reversal the second time when President Joe Biden took this county in 2020 by 6 points. And when we look at this, this really seems to be happening due to the unique makeup of Kent County, right? You have the urban core of Grand Rapids surrounded by more of a shell of those larger suburban areas, a lot of suburban areas that recent presidential results across the nation suggested had moved away in some part from President Trump in the last couple cycles. And then you have the balancing more red, more rural areas on the outer shell of the county. So it has all of those different demographics combined that make it so interesting and such a highly watched national bellwether, a microcosm, if you will. A lot of the swing over the last couple of cycles, as we said, has had to do with those that suburban ring around Grand Rapids. You take a township of Ada, for example, just northeast of Grand Rapids in the suburban ring. Back in the early 2000s, similarly, Republicans dominated here on the presidential level, and it largely stayed that way for years. In 2016, there was still a healthy but much lower margin in Ada when Trump first ran, and when he ran a second time in 2020, he ran Ada by just 2 points, and Biden carried the county as a whole. You go from about 40-point margin in 2000 to just 2 in 2020. Large shift there, but it's seemingly not the only one. You take a little bit of a look further to the west in the county, northwest of Grand Rapids in Walker. Similar to Ada Township, it stayed Republican throughout the entire 21st century on the presidential level, but not near where it was back in 2000. You see Al Gore and John Kerry just got walloped in a place like in Walker in 2000 and 2004. You see that dip that happened in a lot of places around the county during Barack Obama's first run in 2008, then rebounding for Romney and keeping steady for Trump in 2016. But 4 years later, after his first term, about a 10% drop in Trump's margin of victory. If you want to win Kent County as a Republican, given the history of the county, its roots, its recent trends, history suggests that you want to see margins similar to what you saw in 2012. Not what we were seeing in 2020. Even in the suburbs and surrounding areas where Democrats have been victorious for a few cycles, take East Grand Rapids, for example. that margin only growing in 2020. Same thing in a place like Kentwood as well. A smaller margin, but still kind of the same thing that we're seeing here. You look at, for example, Wyoming as well. That kind of mirrors the overall trends in Kent County as a whole. But bottom line, what we're going to be looking at tonight is whether we see similar margins to something we saw in 2012 or even 2016 to a lesser extent for Republicans, for former President Trump, or if we see a continuation of what we saw in 2020 as the results start to come in. When we look elsewhere in the state, we're going to be looking at areas like those areas where we might see large early voting dumps. Places like, if you take a look, for example, Detroit in Wayne County, where a big portion of early votes, absentee votes have been pre-processed. They're just waiting to be tabulated there, or in a place like Ann Arbor, just to the west of that. What we might see there in some of those larger counties, or Kalamazoo County, for example, where we might see those larger numbers come in right after 8 p.m. tonight, what we might see there. So there's a lot that we're going to be taking a look at tonight, that we're going to be tracking both in that suburban ring of Kent County, as we mentioned, but also across the state as we're looking to see these results come in just about an hour or so. But for now, we're going to send it back to you, Juliet.
All right, Josh, thank you so much to digest there. We're going to be following a lot tonight, and we have experts with us throughout the night. So here in studio, Doug Copeman, a published author, senior research fellow, political science professor from Kelvin University. This is the first presidential election in Michigan where we did have that early in-person voting, and there was quite a response. How do you see that affecting tonight's election and the results?
Yeah, I think actually it builds trust in people. I do think voters have voted a few days ahead. They saw it went well, and then voters who are voting today are seeing it's relatively calm. There's always a few glitches. There's always something not working. But when it's not pressed, when the lines aren't really long, these things can get figured out and fixed sort of in real time. And I think it builds trust and confidence that the process has worked, that they learned the lessons of 2020, the Secretary of State and the county clerks and the people working locally in the precincts have figured out how to run a pretty nice election that's more convenient for the voters. And then if it's more convenient, then people will vote more, earlier in the process, but also have more confidence in the whole process.
And you talked about there are a couple of glitches, and the thing that caused some glitches today, and even right now as we speak, is the humidity, because it's humid and those paper ballots are not feeding smoothly into the machine. So we have a couple of townships right now where they are trying to work out the kinks, but they're going to be able to get that. Some lines did back up because of the humidity, but so far that is what we have been hearing as far as glitches this election day in West Michigan.
See, that's great news. If there are these small things that people can see are happening and you can see it being fixed, that increases the trust in the system, that the whole process is going to be efficient and accurate and be completed fairly quickly.
Okay, let's go hit Kent County. We're going to go back to Josh because there are already some states being called. But let's talk about Kent County, since Josh spent so much time talking about how it's become so important, not just to the state, but the entire country.
Yeah, it has these special demographic groups that are important nationwide, but also important in Kent County, an urban core. You have young professionals moving in to the downtown and even to the west side. Some of the stuff Josh talked about Walker changing, is really a changing population there.
Yeah.
Young professionals, starter homes, young couples with children. That's turning them more Democratic than rather than Republican. So there's both of a combination of some voters changing their minds, but really the changing demographics of where people move in the city. And if you live here and you kind of know the neighborhoods, you see, well, this is changing this particular way, but this is sort of remaining the way it was in 1980. And you can see all those things happening. And for a reporter, a national reporter or something, or from a magazine or television network or a station, someone who knows that in detail can sort of point it out. They say, oh yeah, this is a great microcosm of a lot of these larger national trends.
So that makes sense. That's a very good explanation. I'm thinking of Caledonia, Byron Center. Those are all areas that are growing with young families, just spreading out into our suburbs. Okay, we're going to come right back to you, Doug, but we want to go to Josh right now because, Josh, I understand you are getting some early results in already.
Yes, in a few states, we're already seeing the polls sort of getting towards making a projection here. The AP already projecting a couple states for former President Trump and one state for Vice President Kamala Harris as well. If you look in Indiana, Indiana's polls closed at 6 p.m. tonight. The AP is already calling Indiana and its 11 electoral votes for former President Donald Trump. That wasn't anything that we may not have expected tonight. Some of these early states that we're going to see with the most early calls from places like the Associated Press are likely going to be the ones that we largely expected to turn out this way. You're going to see that same dynamic in Kentucky that they also call, the Associated Press also call Kentucky for former President Donald Trump. But in Vermont, where we don't even have any results yet, the Associated Press is already calling that race for Vice President Kamala Harris. A lot of polls still have yet to close, but of course, as you're seeing on this map, that not so dark red because it hasn't been called yet, but still a lighter shade of red in places like Georgia and Florida. We are starting to get some of those early results in from those states. So we are starting to see this map take shape. But as we've said, Michigan is still in a place where our polls are closing at 8 p.m. So we are going to get our votes a little later in the night and see what happens there. But some of these states are already starting to be called, and we're already starting to see this map really shape up for the rest of the night. Juliet, we'll hand it back to you.
All right, Josh, thank you. And back with Doug Copen now, our political expert. And really, those are no surprises, the Associated Press.
No, statewide, they're not really surprises. They wait till the polls close. They've done some exit polling.
Yes.
They have history, and they look at turnout, and there's easy calls. And there'll be a few easy calls
Yes.
On both sides, probably mostly on the Republican side, because those are our less populated states, and it's easier to collect the data. And on the East Coast, there'll be also some Democratic states. The electoral votes will go for Harris early in the night.
And we've been seeing the polls in Michigan, and they really are so close. I mean, even one will take a small edge, but within the margin of error. And it's interesting because Donald Trump now, 2016, 2020, and 2024, has chosen to end his campaign in Grand Rapids with the rally really early this morning. It started at 12:12 this morning. What does that tell us? What does that show us?
Well, partly I think the former president is a little superstitious, and it worked well in 16, not so well in 2020, and so he wants to do it again the third time in 2024. But it is, Michigan's a quintessential swing state. It's a great city to get in and out of. Honestly,
that's true.
Yeah, the flight is easy, and you get media attention, and there's a nice arena downtown. So it makes all the sense in the world to have this stop as one of your last stops. A swing state, a good venue in a swing state. Yeah,
well, that makes a lot of sense. Let's talk about some of the races that we haven't really touched on yet. And those are the ones in West Michigan and in the state races. The mayor for Grand Rapids, Rosalind Bliss, can't run again. She's term limited. So she has David LeGrand and Sunita Lanier are vying to replace her. What do you see about this race?
Well, backing up a little bit, a few years ago, the state legislature decided to consolidate elections. Then a lot of city elections were odd years, off years with low voter turnout. So the legislature decided, let's put them all in the same year, the even election years. And so you do have some nonpartisan races, typically city races are nonpartisan, school board elections are nonpartisan, and they're on the same partisan ballot. They're in a different place than the nonpartisan section. But you have different kind of candidates, and then you really have different levels of turnout. And it's almost shaped a little bit of a different story with people want to know what your partisan affiliation is, even when you're in a nonpartisan race. So you have that dynamic going on really for the first time in the city of Grand Rapids. Rosalind Bliss had been mayor a long time and very nonpartisan, got there on a nonpartisan platform. And so this is a new and unusual thing. But we'll have a winner, and that big turnout at the presidential level or at the state level for the Senate race or even the congressional level for the congressional race, all those folks, or nearly all those folks, are going to vote for mayor. So there'll be a big cumulative vote for the mayor in Grand Rapids.
Let's talk more now about that nonpartisan ballot as well, because the state Supreme Court says it's nonpartisan. If you do your homework, you will see that the candidates are partisan.
Yeah, Michigan is a pretty odd and unusual. Not many states do it the way Michigan does. They have the Supreme Court nominees are officially nonpartisan on the ballot, but they're nominated at the party conventions, the Democratic convention and the Republican convention. And so there are two seats and two candidates, two nonpartisan candidates in each of those two seats, but their pedigree or their history is really within the Democratic Party or the Republican Party.
Oh, so much great information from you. We'll be seeing you later on tonight with more insight. And hopefully, we'll be getting more numbers so we can analyze those as well. Doug Copeman, thank you so much. Back here in West Michigan, people have been at the polls all day, despite those 9 days of early in-person voting. Our team coverage continues right now with Jeremiah Brown live in Grand Rapids. He'll join us in just a minute. But first, let's begin with Callie Lichter, who is talking to clerks and voters live from Muskegon County. What are you seeing there, Callie?
Well, Juliet, I'm now out of the wind and rain that we experienced at Muskegon City Hall, but that wasn't stopping voters from going inside and casting their votes on Election Day. We are currently in the Muskegon County Clerk's office, where ballots will start to arrive shortly after 8 p.m. And Muskegon is, I know all eyes have been on Kent County, as that bellwether county, but there are also some things happening in Muskegon County. It is a historically Democratic stronghold, and 20 years ago, John Kerry led Muskegon County by nearly 9,000 votes, and that total increased to nearly 24,000 in 2008 when Barack Obama took the county over John McCain. But since that 2008 election, the Democratic presidential hold has steadily decreased. In 2012, Barack Obama did lead the county over Mitt Romney, but only by a little under 14,000 votes. 2016 saw the lead Hillary Clinton had over Donald Trump shorten to just over 1,000, which brings us to 2020, when the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump came down to 500 votes. Some analysts are saying that due to the county's support of Governor Gretchen Whitmer's amendment guaranteeing abortion access in 2022, it could signal increased Democrat voter numbers. Muskegon City resident Kiera Johnson says she came out to vote today and to make her vote count.
Of course, for obvious reasons, like I want to have a say-so in who we have in office. I don't want to see another 4 years of Trump being in office. I can tell you that much. Yeah, but I just think we all should come out and vote because our opinions matter. Our vote matters, regardless of what nobody says, and it does make a difference to.
The county has had recognition over the past few weeks, with former President Bill Clinton visiting Muskegon Heights last week, urging voters to vote for the Harris Walz ticket. And like I said, we are live here at the county clerk's office, and we will be here when those ballots start to be brought in by the clerks and the sheriff's department. Live in Muskegon, I'm Callie Lichter, 13 on your side.
And as I mentioned, we do have crews all over West Michigan and the state as well. We wanted to go now to Jeremiah Brown. He's in Grand Rapids.
Yes, Jeremiah, what can you tell us from there?
Yeah, good evening, guys. I'm here at the DeVos Place, which is a big polling location here in downtown Grand Rapids. I'm going to step away just so you guys can just take a look here. As you can see, the line is still pretty long. It actually, just a little less than an hour ago, it actually came all the way almost to where I'm currently kind of standing off camera right now. We're seeing quite a few people, come after work, dressed in, scrubs and work uniforms still. People are registering to vote here along with voting as well. And like we said, this is a big mayor race in the city of Grand Rapids. We got David LeGrand and Sunita Lanier. Now, David, he took 58% of the vote in the August primary, and Sunita Lanier took 20% of the August primary vote as well. They are both current business owners, and LeGrand, he served as an assistant county prosecutor, a school board member, a city commissioner, and he's a former state rep as well. Lanier, she's also a former commissioner for the city's 3rd Ward. She's a former school board member, and like we said, she's currently very involved in the community as a local business owner. We're going to talk a little bit more about kind of their specific stances later this evening, but during the mayor debate we had at the Wealthy Theater just a couple weeks ago, transportation, housing, parking, the unhoused population, and crime were all really big topics that were discussed, and they both have really focused on making sure there's equitable development between downtown and the different neighborhoods, and they kind of, tossed around different ideas and their different plans on how they would make that a reality to make sure we're seeing kind of even development spread out across the area. Now, I had the pleasure of also catching up with current Mayor Rosalind Bliss earlier this afternoon. She has been serving in office here in Grand Rapids for almost 20 years, 19 years to be exact. She became a city commissioner back in 2005, kind of saw us through the Great Recession before then becoming the mayor in January 1st, 2016. And I asked her kind of what's her favorite experience, or really what makes her most proud looking back on her career as mayor. And she really told me she really couldn't decide, so we're going to hear from her right now.
So I hope that the next mayor, and I hope that we continue to focus on a real holistic approach in our city. We can't just be focused on one thing. We need to recognize that great cities are working on a number of issues at the same time, whether it's public safety, housing, environmental sustainability, economic vitality, being an attractive destination for tourists. We really need to continue to do well.
And Mayor Rosalind Bliss is still the mayor until the end of this year. We asked her what future plans entail for her, and she said January is definitely going to be a very well-deserved break for her. And she said she hopes to have her next gig nailed down in February of next year. What that is exactly, she is yet to be able to tell us. But we're going to take this right back to you in studio, guys. Live in Grand Rapids, I'm Jeremiah Brown, 13 on your side.
Thanks so much, Jeremiah.
Joining us right now is American politics and public policy professor Megan Wilson from Michigan State University, part of our live 13 Plus coverage right now.
Megan, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And Megan, both presidential candidates have targeted black voters with their campaigns this election. How do you think their messages have been received? There's been a lot of attention around that. How do you think that's been received?
I think a lot of black voters have seen, we've only seen one plan, and that was Vice President Kamala Harris has actually laid out a plan for black voters, especially black men. And I think that the other candidate, which is former President Trump, he has clearly laid out a vision of what he wanted to happen, but we haven't actually seen a plan. So I think black voters are actually receiving it with a lot of hope, right? That they are being courted in a way that they haven't been courted before. And so it's just really exciting to see black voters being engaged meaningfully, at least by one candidate. And we've seen a ground game that has been really strategic and really beautiful in the state of Michigan, especially on the east side of the state.
And let's talk a little bit more about the male black voters, where the polling indicates Vice President Harris has seen less support than previous Democratic candidates. Why do you think these historically Democratic voters aren't showing as much excitement for Harris as they did for Obama and Biden?
I think there's been a lot has happened since President Obama was in office. And so they're looking for someone to actually court them. And I think that Vice President Harris has tried to do that. I also want to give credit to former President Trump. He has done some work to make sure that black men feel engaged, that he can start to tell a certain story. But I think that it's important to see that, voters actually want you to do something for them, right? They don't want you to just continue to lay out plans for them. They want to actually see what it looks like. And I think voters in Michigan have actually seen that a lot of presidential politics and a lot of politics in general have left them behind. And I think they're trying to hold some folks accountable. But I trust that they'll come out. I trust that they have come out. We've seen record turnout so far, and I think they'll continue to come out.
And we're hearing some reporting of potentially lower turnout in a place like Detroit, a very large black population there. Do you think that has any indication of what the messages in this race may have conveyed to voters, why they may be sitting it out, or what does that maybe say to you?
I think that lower voter turnout is a large systemic issue, right? We've seen that there's a lot of apathy, and the hope is that we get these people out. There has been a huge ground game in the state of Michigan, especially in Detroit, in Southfield, and the Oakland County area, to make sure that folks get out. I'm not going to read too much into it, right? I read tea leaves in 2016, and things changed. And so I think lower voter turnout right now actually just tells us that we need to start engaging a little bit more and a little sooner, and not save it for the last 100 days, right? Like this should be an all 4-year kind of engagement.
Professor Megan Wilson, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We have a look right now at the Electoral College results so far. ABC News called the presidential race for Kentucky and Indiana. Trump, Vermont. And I'm looking to see, Vermont is for Harris. Yes. So anyway, these are not surprises, Josh, as we know. The exit polling, the leaning, this is, expected.
Not initially. Like we said earlier, you know, a lot of these early states that are likely to be called very early
Yes.
are the ones that we knew were probably going to be very skewed, just based on the polling and the forecasts that we had seen there, Indiana and Kentucky and Vermont.
Right.
Obviously no surprise. And there's some of those states that have that either early polls closing, like in Indiana, where they already closed, as opposed to here, where they are just about to, but haven't yet, or places.
Some of the more rural areas, so that they have a really good idea very early how people voted. As we have been talking about Kent County, so many national media outlets, political experts all over the country have identified Kent County as one of the counties across the country that could decide this election.
Former President Donald Trump won the county by 3 points in 2016. Then President Joe Biden won the county by 6 points in 2020.
13 on your side's Elena Holland talked with the Kent County clerk. She joined us now live from downtown Grand Rapids with what the county clerk is saying.
Yeah, hey guys. So as you mentioned, all eyes are here on Kent County. We're inside a polling location for Grand Rapids here at DeVos Place. And as you can see, people are still in line behind me, and they can still vote as long as they're in line at 8 p.m. tonight. So if you still haven't headed out to the polls, you still have time to do so. Also a reminder to drop off your absentee ballots, if you have those, fill it out, to your clerk's office, your local clerk's office, or to one of those secure drop boxes by 8 p.m. tonight. Now, here's something that's interesting. This absentee voting that we've been talking about has been increasing over the past few years, especially in the August primary. Kent County alone saw 58% of absentee ballots cast in compared to the in-person voting. But how is that going to play out here in Kent County for this presidential election? Now, I spoke with Lisa Poshumus-Lyons. She's the Kent County clerk. She said they issued 151,000 absentee ballots as of about 4 p.m. So this was a couple hours ago. They had a 92% return rate. So that meant some people still needed to hand those back. At that point, about 44% voter turnout they were seeing. That's just between absentee ballots and early in-person voting. So the people here, we don't have a count of yet just what that voter turnout is. But for early voting, early in-person voting and absentee voting, that's about 44% of voter turnout. And Lisa expects that to be about low to mid 70% voter turnout for the election by the end of today. Now, I did speak with her about, you know, the absentee voting, about how trends have changed really about how people are voting, whether they do it by absentee, in person, or in person early. Here's what she had to say.
I will say those absentee numbers really kind of plateaued after early voting started. At the end of this cycle, what we've seen is a drop in absentee voting compared to 2020. But again, 2020, we were in the midst of a pandemic. So the fact that we issued 227,000 absentee ballots to the 52,000 this cycle, it's not necessarily surprising because we don't have the pandemic this year. We do have early voting this year. So it really remains to be seen.
So one thing that's interesting too is this is the first presidential election here in Michigan where these clerks are able to process the absentee ballots early. So prior, they would have to be opening them up no earlier than the polls opening on Election Day, which is why we saw election results in the past few cycles coming in later, days, hours, much later. You're not getting the results election night of. So Lisa Poshumus-Lyons told me that she does expect it to be faster results tonight, maybe tomorrow, but looking at how being able to process those absentee ballots earlier is impacting the results that we're going to get for this election. And she said, as soon as they know it, we'll know it. Wants to make sure everything is safe and secure and accurate, but it's not going to be something that's going to be drawn out. One thing that we're talking about too is how important Kent County is as a whole. You've heard this phrase, you've heard me use it, you've heard Josh use it, talking about how it's a politically purple place. That means it's been somewhere that's been traditionally voting Republican, but in the past few cycles, this says that range between the votes have gotten closer. Even Democrats, Joe Biden took it in 2020, so things could really shake up differently. We're not sure how Kent County is going to vote, but it could be indicative of the state, what takes the state. So that's one of the things that we're keeping an eye on here in Kent County. And we'll be here at this polling place until it closes at 8 p.m. And then we'll be joining the ballots themselves as they head on over to a county clerk's location. That's what happens after 8 p.m. so they can begin tabulating it and get you those results as soon as possible. For now, live in Kent County, Elena Holland, 13 on your side.
Thank you, Elena. If you are just joining us on our live 13 Plus coverage, the polls are going to close in about 31 minutes here in West Michigan, and we will be live all night to bring you the latest, everything that we're getting as the information comes in. Right now, though, we want to turn to local races because all of Michigan's state representatives are up for election. Democrats are hoping they can continue their control of the House going into 2025. So we're going to go back to political reporter Josh Alburtus in the Election Center with more on a few of the key races for Michigan House and how they could affect the balance of power in the state. Josh?
Yeah, Juliet, this may have been something that flies somewhat more under the radar just because of how many crossroads Michigan crosses when it comes to we are a big deciding factor on every level of government you can imagine. The Congress, the U.S. Congress, the U.S. Senate, and the presidency. But on the state level, State House, every seat, as you mentioned, is up for grabs. And we reported on this a lot throughout the last couple years because just a couple years ago in the midterms, it was the first time in nearly 4 decades that Democrats had gained complete control over Lansing, all majorities in the State House, the State Senate, and the governor's mansion. But when you look at the actual numbers, it tells a much more nuanced story because it's just so down to the line. Democrats have really tried to, in this election, feed off of what they feel is their progress and their accomplishments over the last couple years on issues like firearms reform and the like that they have been able to get passed largely along party lines because they have those majorities. But when you look at it, it's so very narrow, which is what makes tonight so important. 110 seats in the State House up for grabs, and right now where we are going into election night, 56 of those are Democrats, 54 of them are Republicans. If you're Republicans, you only need a net gain. You only have to keep this number of seats and then gain just 2 to regain control of the State House and kind of kneecap what Democrats have felt have been their progress in the last couple years. And that's why it's so interesting, is because it is so down to the wire. And a few key races in particular could really iron out who is going to be in control of this. We've been looking at what we think are going to be a couple of those really big races in particular. One of them, District 44, this is the northern part of Calhoun County right here. The cities of Battle Creek and Albion and some of the townships and cities in the middle of northern Calhoun County right there. Jim Hodsma running against Republican Steve Frisbee. Hodsma, the incumbent, running in the district. This is a district that Donald Trump won very narrowly, but did win in 2020 before Hodsma won in 2022. So he's running in a district that did back Trump in 2020, and we're going to see if Hodsma is able to pull out another victory in what may be an uphill battle for him, may not, or we'll have to see how that plays out. That's not the only one, though. We've been talking about a couple others in this key state as well. The state's District 27, Democrat Jamie Church is an incumbent running in downriver from Detroit, in the Wyandotte area, in the Gibraltar area, in places like that. This is also a district that Trump carried by much larger margin than he did in northern Calhoun County. This was about 4 points that Donald Trump carried this by in 2020. So this is one that a lot of people are paying attention to because of a vulnerable incumbent Democrat, to see whether or not they can pull off that win again. The northern parts of this district, when we were looking at the numbers, seemed to be Church's biggest asset when it came to how she won a couple years ago. The southern part towards Gibraltar tended to lean more so Republican. So we're seeing whether or not those kinds of margins are going to stick around this time. And there are a few others that we can get to throughout the night. But the big point here is, bottom line is, what we're seeing is that just the smallest tip of the needle, the tip of the scale, could really shape the future of this state in a big way. A lot of people may not be paying as much attention to, just because we have all of those really big races like the presidency up in Michigan tonight. But we're going to be keeping an eye on the state level as well to see where the State House goes and what we could expect from Michigan on the state level for the next 2 years. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. But for now, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back in just a few minutes.
And welcome back to our live coverage on 13 Plus this election night. We will be here for hours leading up to 11 o'clock as the results start to come in. We still have 20 minutes before the polls close here in West Michigan. Josh has an update now on some other statewide races throughout the country.
Yeah, we're coming on with breaking news here. ABC News has just called the presidential race for West Virginia for former President Donald Trump. Again, not a big surprise there in a state like that, but when it comes to the Senate race there as well, that is a pickup for Republicans that they were eyeing very heavily there. Governor Jim Justice ran for that Senate seat in West Virginia, and he is now being called by the Associated Press to be the winner in that Senate contest. A key pickup for the Republicans in the Senate, as that gets them one step closer to regaining the chamber. When we take it back to the presidential race, we have a few states that have been called throughout the night already. Indiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia have all been called for former President Donald Trump, and the state of Vermont has been called for Vice President Kamala Harris. And as we get more results, we're going to keep on getting those in and kind of breaking down those numbers. But for now, we're going to send it back to you, Juliet.
And back here in West Michigan, we've learned that the humidity and the rain has been causing some problems with voting machines that are struggling to read the ballots. Ottawa County Clerk Justin Roebuck tells 13 on Your Side, at the start of the day, there was a lot of moisture in the air, and that caused problems with ballots sticking together when trying to insert them into the machine. He said that prompted them to have to feed the ballots a couple of times.
And that was actually a problem that we had in August as well, because we started out the August primary with kind of a rainy day. And it's amazing how much moisture in the air does affect things like that.
And we just spoke to the clerk in Nelson Township, who tells us they experienced the same issue today, but that issue has been fixed and people were able to go back to vote. New tonight, we are hearing from the Grand Rapids clerk about voter turnout.
13 on Your Side's Micah Cho is live. Hi, Micah. What can you tell us?
Hi, guys. Yeah, we're here with Joel Hondorp at GRPS University in Grand Rapids. Joel, can you kind of tell us where are we and what is this facility being used for?
Yeah, so we're at GRPS University. Obviously, it was hot and heavy here this past week. We did 9 days of early voting here. Tonight we have AV counting board that's kind of wrapping up tonight, and then our receiving board is here where all the precinct chairs will be bringing all their equipment.
Yeah, we know that clerks, county clerks, township and city clerks, they've been busy all night. Tell me, how have you guys been doing over the past few hours?
Oh, I think it's been really well. The weather's kind of holding off, which for that last minute voting is getting a little windy, but we'll see how it ends here at the end of the day. I haven't heard really anything of any lines at any precincts, but I've been here getting set up and making sure things are going smoothly, but as a whole, it looks like because of early voting and lots of absentees, Election Day may have been a little bit slower than what it's been in the past.
Yeah, I mean, we were in Byron Township. We were just talking about this, but we were in Byron Township just a couple hours ago, and the township clerk there said the exact same thing. Is that something you guys were kind of expecting with early voting?
Yeah, we were expecting it, although we were trying to look at what happened in 2020 when we had 60,000 absentee ballots, and this year we issued 37,000. So did those voters just move from absentee to early voting, and we still had the same amount of precinct voters? It's kind of interesting just to watch. Every election cycle is so different, so it's kind of hard when people say, well, is this normal? I'm like, I don't know what normal is anymore because we've had so much election changes over the last 8 years.
Like from now on, every election could be different.
I hope it's kind of settled now for a few elections.
Now, talk about just down the hall here, you have workers in there. Tell me, what are they doing and how long have they been working for today?
So they started at noon today for the AV Counting Board. Because we can do pre-processing of AV Counting Board, they actually we started tabulating absentees last Tuesday. So we've had a whole week to, as the absentee ballots come in, get them processed. So they didn't have to come in until noon. So that group is fresh. What we're waiting now is for those last pickups at the drop boxes and to bring those here to be counted.
Do you guys expect a bigger turnout, or not a turnout, but are you guys expecting a lot to come through those drop boxes?
I'm not sure. We emptied them this afternoon, so we've emptied them twice I think already today. So we'll see what comes in at the end.
Yeah, and you might have mentioned, just wrapping up, you might have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I know you were talking about absentee ballots. Do you know how many you guys have received back?
Yeah, so I just checked. We're at 91% return.
Is that something that you guys were hoping for? Or
I hope so. I mean, so absentee ballots that weren't returned, obviously then the voters either chose to go to the precinct. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that voters can vote. So until the dust settles, we won't know what all those numbers mean.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to tell voters or anybody sitting at home tonight?
Be patient, watching for the results. Obviously, everybody's excited to see what's going to happen, but this election's been a long season, and it takes a little bit to count votes and get them up online.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll send it back to you guys at the studio. For now, live at GRPS University, I'm Micah Cho for 13 on your side.
And you just heard that from the Grand Rapids City Clerk. 91% of the absentee ballots that were handed out have been returned.
Very quickly, we could be expecting those results as the polls are just set to close in 15 minutes.
We are also following the U.S. Senate seat race because Debbie Stabenow is retiring, and so we have team coverage on that race as well. Juliet Gorman in Detroit with Alyssa Slotkin with the Democrat. But first, Lauren Baker is in Novi with Mike Rogers, the Republicans campaign. Lauren?
Hey, Juliet. Yeah, I'm live here at the Republican Party's election party. And as you can see, this room has started to fill up from where we saw earlier. We've been talking to voters all night long, and right now I'm joined with Jerry Militant. Jerry, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Good. So first off, talk about how did you feel going into this election tonight?
Well, I feel really good. I hope that Trump wins. I think he's going to do very good. We definitely need him at this time. Our country is hurting, and people are doing without, and the poor is getting nothing from Kamala, and I just hope that he wins.
And another big race tonight is the Senate race with Mike Rogers running for the Republicans. How do you feel about him going into tonight?
Well, I don't know a whole lot about Mike Rogers. I do know I campaigned for him in Muskegon County and in White Lake in Oakland County, and I hope he wins. But a lot of people that were coming out of the polls were saying that they were going to stick with Melissa Slotkin. I would like to see Mike Rogers win. I hope he does, but I hope he's going to win.
And kind of talk to me about some of the topics or the issues that have really caught your eye this election. What's something you really want to see change in the next presidency?
Well, I hope that the Republican Party will come around to be a little more friendlier towards gay people. I would like to see Trump come around a little more friendly, like J.D. Vance was. I feel like J.D. Vance was very truthful about how he feels, and I've never heard Trump's point of view on it, but I've heard him at his rallies say certain things that kind of makes you wonder a little bit about it. But I love Trump. I think he's great. That's the only thing I would like to see change in the Republican Party.
And we were talking earlier, and you said you actually haven't been a Republican that long. It was actually 2016 that you became a Republican. Talk about that story.
Yeah, I became a Republican when Donald Trump first ran for office in 2016. And I've always been an independent voter. And but I have picked, like Bill Clinton, I voted for him twice. I think he was a great president for his time. But after he ran, after Bill Clinton ran, the party kind of left me, and it's not the same as it used to be when I was, in that era of time. And the party's more extreme now, and I just think that Donald Trump is the best man for the job at this point in time.
And why do you think it's so important that supporters like you are out tonight voicing your support and talking about the issues that are important to you?
Well, I think there's a lot more more people that are coming out to support Trump than there has ever been, because our country is definitely in pain right now. I know I've had to go to a food bank a couple of times, and at the Jewish Center in West Bloomfield, and it's food is so expensive. I mean, I worked for 25 years at the Detroit News and Free Press. I was a newspaper carrier delivery. I loved it. I was in West Bloomfield Hills, and you know, your money can only go so far, and eventually, you know, the Democrats, they offer and promise you the moon, and it just doesn't come true. You know, you eventually run out of money, but they still think that money is free, you know, and it's not. And I used to think that myself. You know, I used to think, oh, they're giving it to us, okay, we'll take it. But, you know, you end up paying for that later down the road. So the money has to come from somebody, you know, and if you're not working and paying, you know, it's not going to happen. You know, we will run out of money, you know, and Kamala Harris has promised us everything except the bananas on the cake, you know, and it's just not going to work.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, Jerry. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Yeah,
it. Hope you enjoy the rest of the night.
Thank you.
We're going to send it back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Lauren. And 13 on your side's Julia Gorman is live in Detroit, where turnout is reported to be lower than previous presidential elections. Julia, what have you seen there today?
Josh, Juliet, good evening. Yeah, we are inside the watch party, of course, for Representative Alyssa Slotkin, who, as we've been telling you for weeks, Josh has been telling you for months, is a part of this highly competitive race for the open U.S. Senate seat that was vacated after Senator Debbie Stabenow announced her retirement. And it was sort of this mad dash to figure out who, of course, was going to replace that spot on behalf of the state of Michigan. And as we see it right now, this race is just so tightly competitive because 51 Democratic senators, 49 Republican senators. So this race between Mike Rogers, whose watch party Lauren Baker is at, and then Alyssa Slotkin's watch party here tonight in Detroit, it's that race to, possibly, balance that power out or switch that power out. That's really what's at stake here in this large race. We saw people starting to come into the watch party probably in the last half hour or so. And of course, so many, if not just about all of the people in this room are also supporters of Vice President Kamala Harris. We're seeing a lot of shirts that say Kamala for everybody as folks are walking into the room. So this is equally a watch party for Alyssa Slotkin as it is for Democrats, hoping to, of course, score that presidential seat as well. We're seeing, a lot of just voters here support. I'm seeing a lot of young people, the age range of people here to support Slotkin is high. Of course, a little bit of background for you. Current Michigan Representative Alyssa Slotkin represents the 7th District. Some big things we know about her: a former CIA analyst. She's in her 3rd term as a representative. She has received support from former President Barack Obama, and she also received that support from longtime Senator Debbie Stabenow. Of course, that's the seat that she's hoping to fill. Things we've heard about from her over this campaign: defending reproductive rights. Of course, that's a big push from the Democratic side as a whole. She has talked about a vote against a federal abortion ban, of course, once again, coinciding with Vice President Kamala Harris. She talks a lot about working to expand the middle class. That's a big part of her campaign that she is passionate about, creating jobs as well, making critical items here in the state of Michigan, not elsewhere in other countries overseas. Also keeping costs of medication down. That's always been a key part of her campaign as she talks about the loss of her mother and the trouble that she went through with her mom as far as health care and medication and access to care. Those are just some of the big things that she's run on in this race. Again, lots of people here. We're probably starting to fill maybe close to 100 folks here at the watch party. This is all happening, of course, it should have started with inside the Motor City Casino here in Detroit. So I'm hoping to be able to talk with some folks here about why they came out to the watch party. Of course, we know the result that they're hoping to see, but what makes them so passionate about Slotkin and what they really are hoping to see out of her if she were to get the win here tonight. So we will toss it back to you guys in the studio and hopefully return with some words from voters and supporters here at the watch party for Alyssa Slotkin. For now, live here in Detroit, I'm Juliet Gorman, 13 on your side.
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah, and something that we've really seen kind of transform elections in the last few cycles, the last few years: social media.
Indeed, and joining us right now is Johns Hopkins University lecturer, a friend to Channel 13 from years ago, Professor Danielle Leake. And Danielle, how things have changed even from when we first started talking social media with you years ago. It's just amazing.
It really is, isn't it, Juliet? Well, first, thank you for having me back.
Oh,
It's
it's
hard
so
to
good to
believe that
see
you
you.
and I are here doing this again. You haven't changed a bit, by the way. I
You
feel like
haven't either. You're just
Thank you. We
wonderful.
look exactly the same, don't we? It's incredible.
Yeah.
I have a few young people who are watching us right now who were just babies the first time you and I did this. So
Oh,
it's a
my.
little hello to them. And, it is incredible, though, to see how much social media has changed since we first started this rodeo, as we might call it, because, back then, so much of what we were looking at is what the candidates were doing online. And I think this election day shows us that it's a lot less about what they're doing and a lot more about what everybody else is telling us to do today. And that's a big change from where we started, almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah, and Danielle, social media has been flooded really with political posts this election cycle, as we're already talking about. Looking at the bigger picture here in Michigan, how do you feel that Democrats and Republicans, the different sides in this election, have done with their campaigning to social media users in particular?
Well, I'll say that especially in Michigan, it has been a really powerful show, both of paid and organic social. So when we think about paid social, we're looking at the advertisements that are targeted to particular groups. So we've seen, in the same way that everybody is so excited to be done with the paid advertisements on broadcast TV, I know everyone is excited to stop seeing advertisements on Facebook and TikTok. We're done with that. But those ads have been especially well placed to make sure that the people that the candidates wanted to get out and vote and to try to motivate that voter turnout, we're seeing the right ads. So that's one of the things that people did especially well.
I want to talk to you about influencers.
Oh, yes.
Because
oh my gosh.
this year, we didn't even know
lot.
what an influencer was when we first started talking about social media and
No, we
politics.
didn't.
The role
No,
they
we
played
didn't.
to attract the younger voter.
Oh my gosh. And today was incredible. I don't know if you saw, but every musician, artist, celebrity was out there trying to tell people to get out the vote. Everybody from, people that I don't know that we know that well, but Olivia Rodrigo, Jennifer Lopez, Kid Rock, Madonna, anybody who was voting today made sure to try to encourage the last minute voter. And a number of those, a lot of the campaigns were trying to make sure that those influencer posts were being shown to people in states like Michigan to try to make sure that those last minute voters avoided the rain and made it to the voting precincts. And we saw that even in places around Detroit. So we can make sure that those posts then get pushed back out to specific locales. So if you are someplace where the campaigns feel like their turnout isn't quite what they wanted, don't be surprised if you start to see all of those get out and vote messages come your way on your social media feeds.
Wow.
Yeah, and we've just seen so much of it, especially this election cycle. So filtering through it, what types of posts have seemed to really have the most effect on those voters who are more social media savvy these days?
Well, it's interesting when you say what types of posts have had the most effect. We now know that posts that have more of an emotional content to them tend to be the posts that resonate the most for social media users. And we also know, unfortunately, that all of us, and that includes people who consider themselves politically savvy, are more interested in content that resonates with our views. So in a strange way, sending advertisements or messaging to people really is only powerful in the sense that it resonates with the people who already agree with us. And that's probably why the thing that has been most powerful has been messaging that drums up animosity and anger around what the other side is doing. And that's why attack ads and attack messaging has really been what has resonated the most during the election cycle.
Well, I could sit here and talk to you for hours about this. I have one more question for you, and it's about misinformation, because AI and the misinformation being spread on social media. We have a Verify segment where we go and verify some of these viral posts that are not correct.
Yeah, and as I'm sure you have probably talked about and mentioned, we know that a lot of our platforms have stepped up and tried to stop disinformation and have even stopped political advertising as we've gotten close to the election. But let's be honest, a lot of that is probably a little too late to have much of an effect. And there's so much of it that it's really difficult for even the largest organizations to try to put a stop to it. And that is one of the things that I think has been interesting, is that even people who don't consider themselves politically savvy have started to recognize that what they're seeing online is false. They acknowledge it, but they also say they don't care all that much. And that's one of the things that I think we're going to see after this election cycle, is that people are less influenced by the information that they see online. They're just more inclined to take the position that they like and stick by it.
Professor Danielle Leake, thank you so much. We hope to get back with you to get more of your insight on social media and the election.
Can't wait. Looking forward to it. Y'all have a good rest of your next hour until I see you soon.
Thanks so much. And as we've been sitting here now, just in the last minute, the polls in Michigan have now closed. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, what we may expect to see as Michigan votes come in.
Hello, everyone. You are watching election night coverage on 13+. I'm Juliet Dragos.
And I'm Josh Alburtus. We will be live here until 11, breaking down results as they come in and hearing from experts.
Tonight, 13 is on your side this election night with our crews spread out throughout the state. Our Lauren Baker is in Novi with the Mike Rogers for Senate campaign, the Republican Juliet Gorman in Detroit with Democrat Alyssa Slotkin's campaign. We also have crews across West Michigan. Micah Cho inside a polling center in Kent County, Jeremiah Brown in Grand Rapids, and Elena Holland looking at voting in Kent County. Callie Lichter is in Muskegon County. The polls closed in Michigan just a few minutes ago, except for a small portion in the western Upper Peninsula, which is the Central Time Zone. So we want to get over to Josh Alburtus in the Election Center with the latest on what we can expect as the polls are counted in today's biggest race for president around the country. And Josh, we are getting already results from around the country.
Yes, we are, Julia, and that includes just the earliest numbers from Michigan. But what we want to talk about are the races that have already been called in this presidential race. Right now, as we know it, Donald Trump leading, or as it has been projected, rather, Donald Trump leading in the Electoral College count right now. So far, the Associated Press calling the states for Trump: Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and a big pot of Electoral College votes down in Florida. None of those surprises, but none really surprises on the Democratic side yet either. Vice President Kamala Harris, the Associated Press projects, has won the states of Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Maryland. We are getting, as you see, some of these states have like lighter shades of red or blue. Those are just the returns that are there so far, but those races have not yet been called. Those are just the earliest vote dumps that are being reported in those states. And so you see right there, we just want to mention real quick that you see Michigan is blue. That's not the set in stone for tonight. That's just, as you mentioned, Juliet, the polls closing a few minutes ago, and those are just the earliest returns that we're seeing where Vice President Kamala Harris is ahead in those earliest returns, and we'll have to see if that does stick around or if Donald Trump takes the lead here in Michigan. We're going to continue to see those results pour in throughout the rest of the night, and we'll be breaking them down as we do. But as we're talking about this, we're not only talking about the fact that these races have been called, but we're also talking about just the overall race for president. We are also seeing the Senate race here in Michigan, very highly watched, very contentious race. Alyssa Slotkin's watch party is tonight in Detroit. The Democratic Congresswoman running for that open seat. 13 on your sides, Julia Gorman is with the Slotkin campaign. Julia, we may be seeing a mood here, but can you tell us anything about what we are seeing?
Yeah, Josh, good evening. The room here is just filling up with people. It's getting busier and busier. The energy is just rising and rising. And I'm joined by Beth Odeker, actually a West Michigander. She's from Kalamazoo. She's a public school teacher. Beth, thanks for taking a couple minutes away from the party to talk with me. Talk to me about why you're here tonight.
I'm happy to be here, Julia. I have been a supporter of the Democratic Party for years. I'm a public school teacher of over 30 years, and the platform of Alyssa Slotkin and Kamala Harris is in line with all of my values. They are walking their talk, and is something I can entirely get behind.
Can you talk to me, I know you mentioned being a public school teacher, I know you're a mom as well, what are just some of the specific things that you've heard from Alyssa Slotkin that you'd really like to see her follow through on if she were to win this race?
Yes, I really like her work in reducing the cost of health care, helping families that do need support during times of need when family members are enduring a cancer diagnosis, caring for their aging relatives. We have to give some kinds of support to those situations, as well as reduce the cost of our everyday kinds of pharmaceuticals. She will take on those drug companies, she will lower those costs, and I just know that she has the strength and the fortitude to do it.
And as I'm sure you're familiar, this is a tight race for this Senate seat after it was vacated by Senator Stabenow. We are neck and neck as far as Democrats and Republicans, when it comes to the Senate. This is a pivotal race here in the state of Michigan that really can impact people across the country. How does that make you maybe more passionate about this situation tonight?
It does. You know what? Michigan is the path forward in a lot of ways. We have demonstrated the ability to come together with the leadership that we have and Governor Whitmer and really everybody at the top of the Michigan Democratic Party. We are the roadmap for how to reach across the aisle, how to get things done, how to fix the damn roads, all of it. And I just feel like if we can demonstrate that kind of cohesive unity in solving problems in a very pragmatic way, others can follow suit.
And I mean, you live in Kalamazoo, where we have seen visit after visit from the, presidential candidates. I mean, Michigan as a battleground state, we are often talked about, local news, national news. We have a big spot in how this race on many levels, on the Senate level, on the presidential level, could turn out. What's it been like for you? I know you're a lifelong Michigander, but what has this presidential cycle and, the race for Senate been like for you living here in Michigan?
Yeah. It's been both extremely exciting, somewhat intense, because we've had so much of a spotlight on us, but I have loved seeing everyone rally around the cause, showing up for rallies, coming in positive and peaceful ways to things. So I feel like the right attention is being paid to the right places, and mobilization matters, and it matters when our elected leaders and our hopefully elected leaders spend face time with constituents. It matters. We know it costs them money. They only have so much time. And when they give it to us, that causes us to be loyal to their causes.
Absolutely. And one more question for you. I mean, of the presidential, elections that you've lived through, how would you say living in Michigan for this cycle has stood out in any way? Anything that's been different, or anything that you've noticed, compared to past presidential elections?
Compared to past presidential elections, I do feel that this has been incredibly divisive and anxiety producing. And the misinformation that is out there and the characterizations of people is just disheartening. I feel like we need to get back to being able to be grown-ups who have discourse, who agree to disagree on some things, and then just go ahead and get the work done, and we meet in the middle. We need to get back to that, and I feel that this leadership, this campaign, what is going right now in the state of Michigan, that is the recipe.
All right, thank you so much for talking with me. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your night. Guys, we will send it back to you in the studio, but of course you were just hearing from a big supporter of Alyssa Slotkin of the Harris Walls campaign. So we will hopefully be speaking with a couple of more folks here in the crowd tonight. But for now, we'll send it back to the studio. Live here in Detroit, I'm Juliet Gorman, 13 on your side.
Yes, and the other U.S. Senate candidate, Republican Mike Rogers, and our 13 on your side's Lauren Baker is at his watch party in Novi. She joins us now live with an update on the mood there.
Yeah, Juliet, live here in Novi at the Republican Party's election party. I gotta say, a lot of people are coming out to support Mike Rogers. Just take a look in this scene. You can see just a lot of people have started to pile in here in Novi. We've been talking to supporters who say that they're ready for a change. They're ready to see something new. When we ask them what are kind of the issues that they're really worried about in this election, they talked about the economy. They said that they think that Mike Rogers and former President Donald Trump will have the ability to kind of shift them back to a time where they can get more money, be more financially secure. And that's something that both Alyssa Slotkin and Mike Rogers have talked heavily about, is the economy. Mike Rogers saying that he plans on helping to get people more money by reducing the amount of spending at the federal level. Alyssa Slotkin talking about how we need to work on the middle class and getting more jobs to people in Michigan. Those are just some of the major topics we're seeing people talk about today. But another thing we've asked people is about voter security. Do they feel like their vote was counted properly, and do they have any worries? And a lot of them have said, yeah. I think that they have less worry about whether there was any fraud or any issues with voter security. We've also asked them, if former President Donald Trump does not win tonight, will they accept the results? A lot of them have said yes. They said that they think they follow the process for picking a president. They think that the process this year is more secure than it has been before, and they're ready to accept the results. But of course, they are hoping that former President Donald Trump wins and Mike Rogers wins. And the polls closed just a couple moments ago, and when that was announced here, everyone just clapped and was excited. So you can definitely feel people excited for this election. We're going to continue to talk to people here tonight to get how the reaction of how they're feeling about election night. So as soon as we get more people, we'll be sure to check back in with you guys. So reporting live in Novi, and Lauren Baker for 13 on your side.
Thank you, Lauren. We want to go now to Muskegon County, which has historically voted for Democrats, but this year considered a battleground.
Yeah, very much so. 13 on your sides. Callie Lichter is in Muskegon now. Callie, what are you hearing about the turnout at this point in the night?
Josh, Juliet, I have heard that this is a large turnout, and I'm actually here with the Muskegon County Clerk, Karen D. Bowie, right now, and we're gonna talk some numbers. I know you have some absentee and early voting numbers for me.
We had early voting, and we had 14,437 early voters countywide. We had the consolidated site here at Marquette, and we had 9,963 early voters. So right now, the polls are closed, and we're tabulating the vote totals in the individual townships and precincts. And right now, as we speak, our early voting site is being tabulated now. Mm-hmm. So we're really excited. This has been historical. I'm so excited because this is the first time in history for Michigan that we've had early voting, and the turnout was overwhelmingly successful. So we're really grateful to our voters. We're grateful to our election inspectors and workers and everybody that took part in this amazing process.
And I know I was able to talk to you before early voting started, when early voting was just kicking off, and now we're here. And before early voting started, you said you had people knocking on the doors wanting to vote, a couple of days before it even opened.
Yes. And when we did kick off our consolidated site, there were people waiting before we even opened up. And every day, up until the very last day, the 9th day, we had 1,500 people come through this consolidated site. So I'm overwhelmed. I'm thankful. There was some concern about early voting, but I think the fire caught on, and we made sure that people got out, that they felt comfortable. There were no issues in our precincts at all. Our voters were very calm and patient, and we're just really excited to see what the turnout is today for the totals, and waiting for our election results to come in.
And I'm sure you've been hearing from clerks around the county, and we were able to talk to some voters earlier today who said, even today on election day, they still had to wait an hour plus in line. So how does that, make you feel that you had this large turnout for absentee early voting and now a large turnout on the day of?
It makes me very confident in our voters' confidence in us, that they feel that their voice needs to be heard. And this is an opportunity for everyone, especially our young people, to get out and make sure that their voices are heard and that they're intricately involved in the election process. So I'm overwhelmed. I really am. I know it's probably going to be a long night, but we're ready for it. The precincts didn't report any issues. Initially this morning, because of the humidity, the rain, and what have you, some of the ballots became a little humid, and so clerks, being the problem solvers that we are, made sure that we increased the air conditioning, and everything started moving along fine. So every vote counted. Mm-hmm.
And that's great, the quick on your feet problem solving. And I know, here in the clerk's office, there's going to be, something that's starting in the next couple of minutes. Can you talk to me about kind of next steps here?
Absolutely. Our local townships and city clerks are now downloading the results from the votes, and they will be tabulating that information, putting the ballots in secure bags, and bringing them in here one by one. And so we'll be here for a little while, but once they come in, they'll bring in their V drives, all of their ballots, and once everybody is here, then our presiding judge, Judge Hoops, Kenneth Hoops, will come in. We already have our law enforcement here with us, and they will escort him back to the county building where he will secure those ballots. And then they will be picked up again on Thursday and brought here for the canvassing that begins to certify the election.
So, still quite a ways to go. The election and ballot counting, everything, and certification doesn't really stop, on election day.
Right.
But, as we wait for the ballots to come in through the door, clerks start arriving and everything, we'll check back in with you later, all about that process. So
well, thank you.
Yeah, and we'll be live here all night here with Karen and the rest of the Muskegon County clerks. Back to you, Josh and Juliet.
All right, a very excited Muskegon County Clerk
It
as the
definitely
ballots are coming
seems like
in.
it. Definitely seems like it. Well, election results are expected to come in quicker this year than they did 4 years ago.
So in addition to that early voting, the city and county clerks did start processing the absentee ballots before the polls closed today. 13 on your side's Micah Cho tells us experts are optimistic it will reduce delays.
We don't have great comparisons, but certainly some people are showing, and it also isn't deterring people from sending in their mail-in ballots as well. So we should have a lot of vote counted, or at least in, before Election Day.
Matt Grossman is the director of the Institute for Public Policy and Social Research at Michigan State University, and like others, he's closely watching how county and election officials handle this year's election.
So give them a little bit of time and a little bit of space to get it right. They know about the concerns about election security, and they are taking them seriously.
Since Friday afternoon, according to the state's voting dashboard, 736,894 ballots have been cast during early voting in Michigan. And that's not including absentee ballots that have been received by the county clerks. With all of these ballots already in the hands of voting centers, will this speed up vote counting on Election Day? Grossman says it's possible.
Michigan is expected to be able to count votes faster this year because it can pre-process absentee ballots earlier in the cycle. The Secretary of State is predicting, an earlier count this year than last time.
Election officials can only pre-process ballots. Votes can't be counted until after polls close on Election Day. And while processing the ballots could be quicker this election cycle, Kent County Clerk Lisa Postumus-Lyons says Election Day lines could be impacted as well, and they also may not be.
So it's entirely possible that we have a lighter Election Day turnout because of absentee voting and early voting, but it's also possible that the Election Day busyness and hustle and bustle would be unimpacted by early voting and absentee. Just depends on who these voters are and when they're coming out.
Micah Cho reporting. The Trump campaign has made international unrest its message to voters, claiming the world is, quote, on fire under President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris.
Political expert David Takitaki from Ferris State University joins us now to talk about some of these issues. David, thank you so much for being here with us.
Happy to be here, Joshua.
And David, here in Michigan, the war in Gaza is a major issue for the large Arab American population in Michigan. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. We saw some initial discontent with the policies of the Biden administration during the Democratic primary here in Michigan. One of the questions is going to be whether or not the Arab American community comes home to the Democratic Party, or if they end up casting protest votes for third-party candidates that could deny Kamala Harris some significant support.
Let's talk now about the war in Ukraine. Russia invaded in 2022. Biden-Harris administration has been steadfast providing military support. During the most recent debate, Trump said that he would be able to end the war quickly. What are your thoughts on that?
That is a point of real contention amongst traditional Republican war hawk supporters who want to see American power projected overseas, but are concerned about whether or not Trump would capitulate to Putin in the Ukrainian conflict. Many people who are supporters of the international order and who are interested in seeing the success of the NATO alliance support Biden's policies and hope for something like a Ukrainian victory.
All right, thank you, political expert David Takitaki from Ferris State University. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes with us.
And we're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more live election coverage on 13+. Continuing coverage now live on this election night. The transportation secretary under the Biden administration is in Detroit tonight at Alyssa Slotkin's party.
Indeed, so we're going to take him real quick here and see what they're having to say at that watch party. Let's take a listen.
Just about making sure government works for the people and not for the wealthiest. It isn't just about defending our rights and freedoms. It's about an opportunity to have politics get out of our face. I live and breathe politics and public policy. I can't wait for a chance to go into Thanksgiving dinner and maybe have politics be on the back burner just a little bit. Who knows, after tonight's victories, we might even set America on the path to having a normal Republican Party again, which wouldn't be a bad thing for the health of our republic. But for now, just know that the millions of phone calls you have made, the millions of doors you have knocked on, the hard work of talking to strangers about politics, which I know does not come naturally to Midwesterners who don't even like taking the second to last cookie off of the plate. Talking to strangers about our values, and what's even harder, talking to people in our lives. How many of you talked to somebody, that crazy uncle, that classmate, that coworker, because you weren't sure if they were going to vote, and you talked to them about what this election meant to you? How many of you voted early? How many of you did something else to make sure that we have a victory tonight? That is why we're going to win with all eyes on Michigan. I believe that in just a few hours, we're going to be high-fiving in this place. So stay energized, stay motivated, and take rightful pride in everything you have done to pave the way for a better future for our families, our kids, and a new generation. Thank you so much, and please welcome back our MC, Ernest Adams. Thanks very much, Michigan. Thank you.
And that was a live look at Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg speaking at the Alyssa Slotkin rally in Detroit.
All right, we want to go now to another live speaker. This is Winnie Brinks. Let's hear what she's saying in Grand Rapids.
Honest, hardworking service that puts people, not politics, first. And tonight, I am confident that we are soon going to be celebrating the re-election of Congresswoman Scholton, because Hillary Scholton is that kind of public servant. She is both caring and tough. She is hardworking. She is practical and dedicated. She works hard every day to get things done for all Michiganders. And there is no better person to continue serving Michigan's 3rd Congressional District at this moment in our nation's history than her. So, please help me welcome to the microphone Congresswoman Hillary Scholton.
Tonight, my family, my village, thank you all so much for joining us. I am overwhelmed with gratitude seeing all of you here tonight. We have truly built something new here in West Michigan, haven't we? Let's give ourselves a round of applause. With every dollar donated, every door knocked, every voter you called, you laid a brick on the foundation that we set in 2022. Now, our home is growing stronger because of you. We are still counting the votes actively here in West Michigan, but we are on track to break voter turnout records here in West Michigan and across the state. It's astounding that we've been able to accomplish this with the momentum that was ignited by this very group. No matter how this election turns out, we can all be proud, knowing that we did everything we could. We laid it all on the field, and as we wait for results, we can breathe a little easier, just knowing that we did not let up for a single moment. This election will determine who will be at America's helm as we cross the 250-year mark as a young nation. So naturally, I've been thinking a lot about history. America was born out of an idea, and that idea has powered us through 250 years of strife and of triumph. Our nation is not perfect, far from it, but we strive every day to be a more perfect union. We strive for it when we lend a hand.
And you were watching Democratic Congresswoman Hillary Scholton, who's running for re-election, thanking her supporters at a party in Grand Rapids.
And now that we're turning from that, we want to turn to verify. The presidential race has been close ever since Vice President Harris replaced President Joe Biden on the Democratic ticket.
And the race is expected to come down to the results in that number of battleground states, including, of course, Michigan.
And we are joined live right now by Casey Decker with our National Verify team. Casey, this has been a very tight race leading to today, and we're still waiting for a lot of results, especially in swing states.
Yeah, the results can come in over the course of a few days, sometimes even weeks, and it's important to remember that's normal. It's not always expected that we're going to hear all the results the night of, especially as these elections have become closer and every ballot counts. Timelines exactly, they can vary by state, sometimes even by county, so we don't always know when we'll hear the results, but we know what the deadline is. That's prescribed by state law, and it varies state to state, but federal law says we need to know the results by December 11th. So absolute worst case scenario, December 11th is when we'll know the results, and that's all considered part of the normal election process.
All right, Casey, you know, we've been running many of your Verify stories throughout the election season, and we like to talk about these viral claims. So there are viral claims a voter's ballot could be disqualified if a poll worker writes on it or makes stray marks. Should our viewers be concerned if they saw that while voting today?
No, they shouldn't be concerned. In fact, in many states, poll workers are required to write on your ballot. Usually that's something just like initialing to give it an official stamp. Sometimes it's writing your precinct number on the ballot, so that's completely normal. Now, worst case scenario, if they mark it in the wrong way and there's a weird mark on the ballot, there are also processes to make sure that what you voted for gets tallied. There are processes to make sure that the voter's intent is considered, and humans will review it if there's any issue with machine scanning. So it's not something that you should really be concerned about.
And Casey, there seem to be a lot of viral videos in the days leading up to Election Day showing voters in some states being turned away or asked to remove clothing supporting their candidate at their polling locations. Some people online want to know whether this is against the law. Can you verify what the law here is in Michigan specifically?
The law in Michigan explicitly says that you can't wear campaign attire within a certain range of a polling place. So that is normal for them to ask you to cover that up or take it off before you go in to vote. It varies state to state. Michigan is one of the states that very explicitly says that is no-go. And that's because it's considered electioneering. The idea is they want to prevent voters from being intimidated or persuaded as they're going in to vote. They want that to be a peaceful and free process. So electioneering is not allowed, and Michigan is one of the states where you're definitely not allowed to wear campaign attire in the polling place.
All right, Casey Decker from our National Verify team, thank you so much for joining us live, and thank you for your Verify reports that help all of us.
And now we're taking a look at the race nationally for the presidency. We're taking a look. Here is the latest look at the Electoral College map. ABC News has just called the presidential race for Arkansas for former President Trump. They have also called the race for West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Tennessee for Trump. And ABC News has called Vermont, the District of Columbia, Maryland, and Massachusetts for Vice President Kamala Harris.
And we'll give our viewers here a second here because we just put up the electoral map, and those are the states that you just named.
Yeah, a lot of those, not really any surprises up until this point. I mean, Florida, of course, maybe a little bit more towards the center than some of these other states, but not really competitive by any means. But it is a very big pot of electoral votes there, so that's why you see former President Trump with almost double what Vice President Kamala Harris has at this point in time, but still just a lot of states to be called at this point.
We want to go back now to West Michigan and a glitch in today's voting. We're hearing that some polling locations had issues putting ballots through tabulators because of the humidity.
And we are told this happened in both Kent and Ottawa counties. 13 on your side's Jeremiah Brown is live in Grand Rapids. And Jeremiah, what do you know right now?
Good evening again, you guys. And as we heard from the Muskegon County Clerk Karen Bowie just a few minutes ago, they also had this issue too. But the Ottawa County Clerk Justin Roebuck told us earlier this morning that they did have the issue processing ballots due to the humidity. We now know that this was also seen in Kent County and Nelson Township near Sand Lake. And what we know right now is that the clerk for Nelson Township, Laura Hoffman, says that the issue started after lines getting long around 3:30 this afternoon. She says the ballots started to swell when temperatures and humidity went up naturally with the rain. Hoffman said they called a technician in to fix it, which took about 5 minutes. We've also spoke to the voter who called our newsroom about this issue.
There's been a handful that have been upset. Most people are grateful. They understood. They smiled. They thanked the poll workers for doing their job. You know, when you have temperatures in the 70s and rain, you're going to have humidity, and it's going to cause the ballots to swell sometimes. And it happens.
I got here at about 4:30, and the line had backed up, and no one was coming out. No one was even able to vote because the last person who came out said, "Oh, they just shut the machines down. They're going to leave it off for a while." Because of humidity, they're having issues with it. And I'm like, humidity is not going to cause an error with a machine. But so we were out here about a half hour, and then some people started leaving.
And as we said earlier, the issue in Ottawa County and both Kent County have been resolved. The Nelson Township clerk says that she understands some people may have been frustrated, but she says, rest assured that all those ballots will still be counted. Live in Grand Rapids, Jeremiah Brown, 13 on your side.
And the humidity hasn't gotten down any because it's raining really hard right now.
And we could just hear it on the roof. It was so loud a minute ago.
Yeah, and the Grand Rapids City Clerk did say earlier that this happened in August before, too, that the humidity got a couple of the ballots stuck in.
Yeah, so not a new problem by any means, but it seems like they have fixed some of these problems already, and we're on our way towards getting those ballots still counted. But we are also at Alyssa Slotkin, Democratic Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin's watch party. She is running for the U.S. Senate, the open U.S. Senate seat. She is in Detroit tonight.
Yes, and our 13 on your sides, Julia Gorman is with the Slotkin campaign. And Julia, more people starting to show up to the party?
Man, guys, it's packed in here. The volume level keeps getting louder and louder. I would easily say we're talking 200 folks or more here inside the Soundboard Theater, inside Motor City Casino for this watch party for Representative Alyssa Slotkin. As Josh mentioned, going for that open U.S. Senate seat after we saw a retirement decision by a longtime Senator Debbie Stabenow. And I've been speaking with some voters here tonight, some things that they're telling me that they're really just excited for if Slotkin were to win this race. They're excited to see cost of everyday items hopefully come down. They're excited to see a crackdown on prescription drug prices, those things that really can just cost so much for everyday middle-class families. We also know that current Representative Slotkin, she's such a big proponent of reproductive rights, of having critical items made here in Michigan. Those are some of the things that she's run on in this campaign. Now, some exciting moments so far here at the watch party. We did hear from the mayor of Detroit very briefly just about how excited he is for this campaign. And then we just heard from U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, who is now a Michigander. He lives here in our state. Of course, he is such a proponent for the Slotkin campaign. He really talked about just how incredible this campaign has been on the Democratic side across our country and how excited he is to see everyday families really rallying behind Slotkin and rallying behind others on the Democratic ticket. So it is certainly getting loud in here, excited. Music is blasting. We are expecting to hear from some more speakers very soon in the 9 o'clock hour as we wait for polls to officially close here in the state of Michigan. So as soon as we hear from someone else, we'll hopefully be able to give you a little sneak peek into that. Not sure who those next speakers will be, but we will of course let you know. But so far, a packed house here in Detroit inside the Motor City Casino for what could be our next U.S. Senator here in Michigan for Alyssa Slotkin. So I'll send it back to you guys for now. Live in Detroit, I'm Juliet Gorman, 13 on your side.
Julia, thanks so much. And now let's turn back to Muskegon County, where it has historically voted for Democrats on the presidential side, but this year it is considered a battleground.
And it is a focus. 13 on your side's Callie Lichter is live in Muskegon. And Callie, what's happening there?
Well, as you can see behind me, we're in a little bit of a different location. I'm here again with the Muskegon County Clerk, Karen D. Bowie, and she's going to kind of walk us through, they're tabulating some votes behind us, so.
Absolutely. This is the end of our early voting site. As you can see, we have Democrat and Republican workers here, and they are downloading the results of the early voting, in which we had 9,963, I think I'll always remember that number, votes cast here at our Marquette Consolidated site. So they are downloading the results now, and it will be posted to our website once everything is calculated. So all of those machines represent all of the precincts in Muskegon County except for Dalton and Holton, which hosted their own. And once they tabulate everything, they will put the machines in those cages over there, which are called tiger cages, and they are locked and secured for the entire election unless there's a recount, and then they're brought back out. But other than that, they're secured, they're locked down. So as you can see, they're having a really good time. These workers have been phenomenal. They've been working the whole 9 days, and they still have a lot of energy as they're getting ready to finalize the early voting totals.
I know that's one thing that some voters are concerned about, after these votes are tabulated, how are clerks keeping them secure? But, with this cage and, you've talked to 13 on your a few times leading up to today, that cage.
Absolutely. The tiger cage is what is used to secure the voting equipment. Actually, the ballots and the tape totals will be secured in voting bags that are both sealed and signed by both Republican and Democratic representatives. And then Judge Hoops will come in tonight sometime, or hopefully early in the morning, whenever we finish, and take all of those ballots and vote totals to the county building, and he will be escorted by our wonderful sheriffs. We have 2 deputies here, and that will be secured until Thursday when the canvassing begins and we get to start the certification process for this wonderful election.
And like you mentioned, and like we can see behind us, they are busy at work tabulating those votes, and clerks across the country and across the state are doing the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. And these workers are amazing. They literally have been up since 5 o'clock this morning and working nonstop. So we're going to have to really, really do something special for our workers who have diligently worked this whole election process. So I'm really thankful to them. These are just a handful, and there's many more that we're going to have to celebrate after all of this is over.
Well, we can let them get back to work. Like I said earlier, we'll be here all night as more votes are tabulated. The votes are coming in from the rest of the county. Live in Muskegon, I'm Callie Lichter, 13 on your side.
We want to go to Kent County now because Kent County is considered one of the counties across the country that could decide the election.
Former President Donald Trump, if you remember, won the county by 3 points in 2016, but then it flipped. President Joe Biden won by 6 points in 2020.
13 on your side's Elena Holland talked with Kent County Clerk. She's there watching as the votes are coming in. Elena, what can you tell us?
Ooh, what an exciting election day. So when the polls closed at 8 o'clock, the clerks were taking those ballots to the county. So right now, the votes are being tabulated here at the county clerk's office here in Kent County, which is an exciting thing. As of right now, I just checked with Lisa Boschman's lines. She just walked past maybe 30 seconds ago and said that they were just beginning that process of tabulating them. So no numbers just yet. We'll have that coming up for you a little bit later on. But one thing that she did say was interesting as far as talking about absentee ballots. They've issued 151,000 absentee ballots for this election cycle, and they do expect some difference in that with the election results coming in quicker because they were able to process those early this year for the first time in a presidential election here in Michigan. So she told me that they do expect the results to come in a little bit faster than we've seen in the past few years because of that. Now, as of earlier this afternoon, just for early in-person voting and for absentee voting, there was about a 44% voter turnout here in Kent County. She expects once it's all tabulated up with the in-person voting on election day today, it should be between the mid low to mid 70% range of voters in Kent County that voted. One thing that's top of mind right now is security, especially with the change in processing those absentee ballots. A lot of people have questions about security. Now, she told me, Kent County Clerk Lisa Posthumus-Line told me that they are working closely with the Kent County Sheriff's Office to make sure that the polling locations here are secured, but also they've got thousands of trained election workers, and they've spent a lot of time going through and making sure these equipment are working. As you heard from JD just a few moments ago, there were some small issues with moisture in some different polling locations across West Michigan as a whole. She told me there was no major issues here in Kent County that were not able to be easily handled by the election workers on site and shouldn't have impacted anybody from voting. Here's what she had to say a little bit more about election security and what you can expect for this election.
Our elections in Michigan they're very unique because they're so decentralized, and I think that plays a huge role in the security and the integrity of our elections. We basically are having 2,000 separate elections going on right now. And then we have so many checks and balances before the election, during voting, and then actually after today, once all the ballots are cast, there's so many more steps that we take in the process after the election to ensure that the election is secure, it's transparent, it's fair, it's accurate. So I just want voters to know that we spend months preparing for our elections. We've trained thousands of our election workers on the ground. Our equipment has all been tested so that we know it's assigning votes accurately. And we're ready to go. We're prepared for any situation. We've been working with the Kent County Sheriff's Office extensively to have a plan in place.
So as we've been talking about, Josh has mentioned this many times, Kent County is a really exciting county to watch this election day. It's historically been very Republican held, but in the past few election cycles, that's getting narrow. And in 2020, actually the county voted for Joe Biden by a few percentage points, and I know we just talked about that. So a lot of people are keeping their eyes here on this politically purple county here in Kent County, and we'll keep you updated with the clerk. We'll talk with her in just a bit as those numbers start coming in, as they're tabulating these ballots. So stay with us. We'll have that all for you tonight. For now, live in Grand Rapids, Alina Holland, 13 on your side.
We're also joined with political experts who are helping with their insight on this election night. And back with us now, American politics and public policy professor Megan Wilson with Michigan State University.
Professor, thank you.
Hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes. We wanted to talk with you. We wanted to get to something maybe we didn't get as much to earlier tonight when it comes to the potential gender gap that exists between black voters. When we talk about the black male vote specifically, a lot of the conversation around that has been whether or not this particular demographic has been more up for grabs vote-wise this time. But when you look at black women, that demographic is largely has been considered a core base for the Democratic Party. Can you talk to us about what the gap may be there in gender?
Of course. I think right now we're seeing a huge gap in Black women just because they're always going to be loyal. They're steadfast Democrats since they've been able to vote since 1965. And I think Black men have taken a little bit more time. They're a little more able to, they have a little bit more room. They're not as loyal, but I think that they'll show up and they'll continue to vote. I think they're not as mobilized, but I think in this election, they have been mobilized, so we'll see. Earlier, we talked a little bit about the fact that we haven't seen large turnout in Detroit, but I think that a lot of folks, there's been an exodus out of Detroit of Black Americans into Oakland County, into Macomb, throughout Wayne County. And so I think we'll get the numbers a little bit more spread out in that area than we will. So I think we need to look beyond just Detroit for the Black male vote. And I think they actually will show up as steadfast Democrats in ways that we continue to see them vote all over the U.S.
Now, what about Kamala Harris would be the first Black Asian female president? How do Black male voters react to that? Is that something that they're concerned about having a woman, or that they embrace?
No, I think they embrace it. They embrace it. They see their mothers, they see their sisters. Many of them are voting for her because they see their family in her. The Black community is a matriarchal community. And so they definitely look to Black women for leadership, and we always have. And Kamala Harris is a Black woman. She is a Black South Asian woman. She went to Howard, right? Like her watch party is at what Black Americans call the Mecca. And it is Howard University, a historically Black college. And it is it is a place that Black men will continue to support her in. And there are tons of Black men that will support her in this election. And the ones who don't, she just wasn't aligned with, but she will continue. She will be a president if she's elected, she will be a president for them as well. And they'll support her. And I don't think there's any ill will in that area.
And then just on the other side, Black male Trump supporters. What can you tell us about that?
I think Black male Trump supporters are they are disinvested in the political system in a way, and they are looking for someone who speaks to them. And I think there's room for that. There's room for everyone in the United States. And I think Black male Trump supporters need to have a voice. Trump did a really good job of mobilizing some of them in some areas, especially with television ads. We see that Black male Trump voters, they are trying to find their voice and their political voice. And if Donald Trump gives them that, I appreciate that. I'm glad that someone does. I hope that they continue to stay involved in many ways.
Professor Megan Wilson, thank you so much from Michigan State University for your insight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. And we're also hearing that a candidate for the U.S. Senate is speaking now at one of their rallies over on the east side.
Yes, so we want to go to Novi, where Mike Rogers is addressing the crowd.
And it really started with one big endorsement, by the way. We were able to get the endorsement of Michigan's farmers, the Farm Bureau endorsement. They hadn't endorsed a Republican in this seat since 2006. And they decided that this was the time, because we sat down and talked to farmers and we worked through their issues and decided that the regulatory burden that was coming out of Washington, D.C. was a bit too much. And this was the first time in our history we had to import more food than we exported. And as I like to say about farmers, trust me, in politics, they know where BS belongs. It's on the field, right? And when they did that, people sat up and took notice. 45,000 family farmers, 1 million agri-workers across the state took up and took notice. And we could fundamentally start seeing the switch, like, hey, maybe something's going on here. Maybe people are more engaged than they have been in the past. Maybe people are saying, this is not a state to give up on. This is a state to work for. And through the weeks, yeah, you bet. And then we created the best, and I'm not just saying this, the best ground game in the country. Yeah. Just think of that. Last week alone, right leading up to the election, 88,000 doors. We've touched over 3.5 now million voters through voter contact. We haven't done that in years in a statewide race. And we did that not with all the money in the world. We've been outspent, 6-1, I think. What we did it through people power, because people believed in something bigger than themselves. They believed if they hit one more door or dropped one more hanger or had one more conversation, we could be in this race. We could be here to make a difference for our state and our country. And man, did we do it. So the last few polls have been tied. Like I said, don't pay attention to the precincts in and the precincts out. That thing's gonna bounce around all night long. The most important number is at the end of the night, and I do believe this is going to be a nail-biter, and as my folks are telling me, we are likely not even to know the results tonight of this race. That's not great news, but here's what the good news is. That means you have made this race competitive. Yeah. So for all of those people that we've had the good fortune to talk to, the police officers who believed that they have been mistreated over the years, for the farmers who are under siege right now in their ability to put food on our table, for the auto workers who are terrified about their future, for the Teamsters who have talked to me yesterday who said our number of car hauls is going down and we can see it, which means layoffs are coming for them too. For the teachers who are saying, man, we need some help. Hey, there they are. For the men and women of the United States military who are saying, man, please just give us a service worthy of our service. Think of that. All of those people, and we have talked to all of them, who are ready to do something different for this state. That's why this race was important to us, why it was important to my wife, Christy, why it was important to so many of you who got in the rain and the cold some days, and those Saturday mornings when everyone else was doing something fun, you were going to a door and knocking on a door or putting up a sign. That's what this campaign was always about. Christy said it best. It wasn't about me. It wasn't about us.
And you were watching live U.S. Senate candidate Republican Mike Rogers addressing his supporters at his party in Novi tonight. And as you heard him say, it could be a while before they get the final results.
A really closely watched Senate race there. And of course, Michigan at the crossroads of so many important races, including the race for the presidency. So we're going to take you to a look at the latest look at the electoral college map across the nation. The Associated Press has just called the race for Illinois for Vice President Kamala Harris. ABC News has called the race for Arkansas, West Virginia, Kentucky, Indiana, South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Tennessee for former President Donald Trump. ABC News has called Vermont, the District of Columbia, Delaware, Maryland, and Massachusetts for Vice President Harris.
It is now 9:04. Polls here in West Michigan have been closed for an hour and 4 minutes. And we want you to stay with us because we have much more live election night coverage on 13 Plus. We'll have more live reports after this quick break. And we are continuing our live coverage on this election night on 13+. I'm Juliet Dragos.
And I'm Josh Alburtus. We will be live here until 11, breaking down results as they come in and hearing from experts.
Tonight, 13 is on your side with crews all over the state. Lauren Baker is in Novi with the Mike Rogers for Senate campaign. The Republican Juliet Gorman is in Detroit with Democrat Alyssa Slotkin's campaign. We also have crews all across West Michigan. Micah Cho covering the 3rd Congressional District race. Jeremiah Brown has a look at some of the voting issues in West Michigan today. And our Elena Holland looks at voting across Kent County. Callie Lichter, meanwhile, is in Muskegon County. The polls closed in Michigan about an hour and 13 minutes ago, except for a small portion of the western Upper Peninsula, which just closed. And political reporter Josh Alburtus is over in the election center with more on what we can expect. He has the latest numbers on the electoral map.
Yeah, Juliet, in terms of the race for president, we haven't exactly seen any big unknowns be called yet. A lot of these that have been called so far have been ones that we widely expected through the polling to have been called in the way that they were. I mean, you see some of these states that have these lighter shades of red and blue. Those are the ones that haven't been called yet. Those are just the vote dumps that we've gotten so far. So in terms of what's actually been called, everything's largely been expected. A lot of those northeastern states like New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, a lot of those being called for Vice President Kamala Harris. A lot of states towards the south, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, up into Ohio and Indiana, those being called for former President Donald Trump. When we take a look at Michigan, that's not been called yet. We still have a ways to go, about 10% of the vote, according to the Associated Press. This is their dashboard that we're looking at here, 10% in so far. Kamala Harris with a lead here in Michigan of about 6 or 7 points so far up until this point, but a long ways to go on what we're going to see actually turn out in the end result. But as we wait for that, and we wait for more numbers in the all-important U.S. Senate race as well, we're going to toss it back to you, Juliet.
All right, and back with us once again is our expert, Doug Copeman, who is from our political science professor, Calvin University. Thank you for joining us again, because at 7 o'clock we were talking about what we were waiting for as the numbers come. Now we're starting to see numbers come in. Are you seeing anything out of the ordinary yet?
Well, I'm not sure it's out of the ordinary, but actually it's fairly consistent. You're seeing a lot of county by county analysis compared to 4 years ago and tonight. And Donald Trump seems to be doing 1 to 2 percentage points better in those analyses. Like you take a particular county in a particular state, a couple of percentage points better. So if that holds nationwide, he does win the presidency. He flips a few states, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania. Doesn't flip Michigan. So it'll be interesting to see whether that sort of consistent 2% increase holds throughout the evening. And those counties now, they're 70% of the vote counted or 65% of the vote counted. So it's not all the votes either. But Trump is doing a little bit better, just slightly better than the election that he lost in 2020. So it does seem razor thin and very tight.
Let's go to Congress and Senate here in Michigan. We just heard from Mike Rogers. He addressed his supporters at his party in Novi. We have not heard from Alyssa Slotkin yet. And Mike Rogers said it might be a while before we know the results.
Yeah, there should be a very large flood of votes put in by the clerks in the different counties and in the different jurisdictions around 10:30 or 11 o'clock. They've been able to count some of those absentees or early votes earlier on, and then they want to put that together and then put them out there probably before midnight is what I hear talk. So there is some time, and it does seem to be very, very close. Indeed, and in fact, if Michigan is 2 percentage points better for Trump, Trump still loses Michigan. But then that also makes it a very close Senate race as well.
And one race that we don't think is very close is Congresswoman Hillary Scholton, who's running for re-election. She also addressed her supporters. She's here in Grand Rapids.
Yes, that race was not on anyone's really list of races to watch. There are 3 in the U.S. House in Michigan to watch. It would not have been a complete surprise had Hudson been able to win or would win, but most people saw it very likely Democratic.
Yeah. Anything else, any other observations before we come back to you in the next hour?
Well, I'm watching the news and reading results, and some of the people on television seem disappointed there's not more controversy. It seems like voting is going very well in most states. Small incidents, but no major incidents, and in particular in Michigan. By this time, 4 years ago, we had activity going on in Detroit. That was of a concern, and there's none of that going on in the state of Michigan, which is really encouraging.
Calvin University's Professor Doug Copeman. We'll see you back here in just a little bit. We do want to continue now to talk about Kent County. You're seeing Elena Holland. She's there with the Kent County Clerk with an update for us. What do you know, Elena?
Hey, Juliet. So this is a really exciting county to watch, right? Because, politically, historically, Kent County has leaned Republican, but that margin has been narrowing over the last few elections. So it's been really interesting to watch. And as of 8 p.m., the polls close, and now the ballots are being tabulated. I'm here with Kent County Clerk Lisa Posthumous-Lyons. Thanks so much for joining us. How busy are you right now?
Well, we're busy. Yeah, it's been a great day. Things are going smooth, but this is just part of the process. So busy is good.
Can you explain to our viewers about what is happening right now, what your office is doing?
Right now, my office is waiting to receive results from our local jurisdictions so that we can upload them into our election management system and report those results out to the public and the candidates and the campaigns. It's one of those. We're not going to sacrifice security and accuracy for speed, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure that we are getting results to the public as soon as we can.
Yeah. All right, so where are we standing right now? I know it hasn't been long that you've been counting these.
Yeah, right now we uploaded reported our very first results at 8:37. That was Algoma Township absentee votes. We also have Lowell Township and Cannon Township absentee votes as well, and we have almost all of Grand Rapids City absentee. That, like I said, this isn't all of Grand Rapids because they had, this is what they were doing with the pre-processing. There are still election day absentee ballots that are being processed and counted in Grand Rapids that we're still waiting on. But we wanted to get the results we have out to the public.
Yeah. Let's talk about how this is different from, say, like the 2020 election where, you guys were really undertaking this huge process of processing and tabulating these absentee ballots. How is it different this year?
This year has been very different. First of all, we're down. We're down a lot of absentee votes or absentee ballots. And of course, 2020, we had the pandemic, so I'm not surprised. We issued 227,000 absentee ballots in 2020. We're looking at about 151,000 here in 2024. But we also had 96,700 early votes as well. So you combine those absentee votes with the early votes, that was a 45% voter turnout already just going into Election Day. I expect this to be, in the 70s, maybe 75% turnout. That would be a record. And if that's the case, that means there were a lot of people who still came out today.
Mm-hmm. So as far as the people who are coming out today, or came out today before 8 p.m., when is that, or how are you guys tabulating those votes in comparison to the absentees?
So the in-precinct results and the early voting results are they are printed out on the tabulators in the precincts. Those are the paper materials. The county or the local clerks will deliver the media cards from the program on it. That's what has the results. So we get those. That's what we upload, and that's what we report. All of this is done with a kind of a separate from, when we upload them into the management system, it's a separate network and then we have to upload them to our reporting website, which is what the public will see.
All right, so what times can we expect people to be getting results yet? Do you have any estimation?
It took us until 7 o'clock in the morning in 2020. I'm very confident and optimistic that it will be much sooner than that. We were able to pre-process absentee ballots much sooner, up to a week for some of our jurisdictions. So we're definitely, and as you can tell, as they keep coming in this 9 o'clock hour, things are moving. Anytime we're waiting, it doesn't mean it's a delay in the process. It means it is the process. It just means these ballots are still being counted and all of the materials are being put together to make sure the election was accurate and to make sure that we're preserving the integrity.
A little bit fewer cups of coffee this time, then it sounds like.
I don't drink any coffee,
Oh,
but
wow.
you might see me with a Fresca a little later, cutting loose.
Sounds good. We'll let you get back to work. I know you've got a busy night. We'll check back in with you later.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much. We'll be here for the evening and keep you updated throughout the night. For now, live in Grand Rapids, Elena Holland, 13 on your side.
A race being watched not only in Michigan but around the country is the U.S. Senate race, the seat being vacated by Debbie Stabenow. The candidates are Democrat Alyssa Slotkin, Republican Mike Rogers. Our 13 on your side's Julia Gorman is with the Slotkin campaign. And Julia, what is it like there at that party right now?
Yeah, Juliet, good evening. Well, we actually just saw Alyssa Slotkin arrive here to the watch party. She was sort of swarmed by people wanting to take selfies, just pictures, speak to her, wish her good luck, congratulations, all sorts of things ahead of course, the results tonight in this highly contentious race, this really competitive race for that open U.S. Senate seat after longtime Senator Debbie Stabenow announced her retirement earlier this year. Just moments after Alyssa Slotkin arrived, longtime Senator Debbie Stabenow also walked into the room and was greeted by so many supporters here at this watch party this evening. So these two key players, of course, the top key player and then who she could very well be replacing, both here now at this watch party. There are hundreds of people here at this point, lots of just supporters, folks who are voters, and then folks who are also a part of her campaign. Of course, we've been hearing from voters just how excited they are about some of the things she's promised as a part of her running for this seat that is just so vital as the split between Democrats and Republicans is so tight in this election. And we've been hearing from voters, but also we heard probably a half hour ago or so from U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg just about how amped up he is about this race and also the race for president. Here's a little listen into what he had to say.
We are sending a message nationwide that in a free country, you get to be who you are, you get to love who you love, and a woman makes her own healthcare decisions in a freedom-loving country. But more than that, we have called Democrats and independents and a strikingly large number of what I like to call future former Republicans into this big, broad tent, big enough to hold the likes of AOC, Dick Cheney, Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and everybody in between. Because we know that this isn't just about making sure government works for the people and not for the wealthiest. It isn't just about defending our rights and freedoms. It's about an opportunity to have politics get out of our face.
Again, that was U.S. Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, now a Michigander, speaking on behalf of Representative Alyssa Slotkin, who again going for that highly contentious, that highly competitive open U.S. Senate seat after it was vacated by longtime Senator Debbie Stabenow, who is here tonight in support of Representative Slotkin. We don't know yet if we will hear from her anytime soon. Obviously, we are still a ways away from this race being called, but we will of course update you if she does start to speak at any point. But overall, hundreds of people here at her watch party inside Motor City Casino in Detroit. As soon as we do hear from her or anyone else, we will of course keep you posted. For now, live here in Detroit, I'm Juliet Warman, 13 on your side.
And as we just heard from Julia, Alyssa Slotkin has just arrived at her watch party in Detroit. Our 13 on your side's Lauren Baker is at Mike Rogers' watch party in Novi, where he already addressed his supporters, and she joins us now live with the latest on the mood there.
Hey, Juliet. Yeah, I'm live here in Novi. I don't know if you just heard the crowd cheering. It's because Fox is reporting that Texas has been called. The crowd has been really active every time a Republican has been called for their race. Obviously, things are still tight here in Michigan, but they've been very active. And just about 20 minutes ago, we actually heard from Mike Rogers. He got on stage behind us kind of talking about how close the race is here, both in the Senate and the presidential level. And he said, voters, you need to stay tight, you need to stay ready. He said that it could be all night before we actually hear the results. And so he's encouraging people to stay here. And then after he talked on stage, he actually got down on the ground and he was, I don't know if you can actually see, but a little bit behind there, he was actually talking to people and encouraging them and saying thank you and thanking them for their support. And we talked to some of his supporters who said that they're really excited for tonight. They think that they're confident that it's going to go their way and that some of the topics that are hard-hitting issues for them, like the economy, abortion rights. They think that Mike Rogers and Donald Trump will work on those things. Take a listen to a supporter we talked to earlier who said that no matter how things play out today, he's ready to accept the results. We're going to get that sound to you in just a moment, but and basically what he was saying is that he is willing to accept the results. He said he and other voters say that they have trust in this system, this voting system, and they're confident that no matter what comes out, they know that the process went through correctly this time in comparison to 2020. Of course, we're going to continue to talk to supporters all night long. We're going to be staying here because this race is tight here in the Senate in Michigan, so stick with us all night long, but we're going to throw it back to you in the studio. Reporting live in Nova, I'm Lauren Baker for 13 on your side.
Thank you so much, Lauren. And now we're going to talk to an expert about some kind of the issues that we're seeing come up in these races and the discourse at large.
And you know, the focus, the Trump campaign has made international unrest a message to voters, claiming the world is, quote, on fire under President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris.
Political expert David Takitaki from Ferris State University joins us now to talk about some of those issues. Professor, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And Professor, here in Michigan, the war in Gaza is a major issue, especially for many in the large Arab American population in Michigan. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. The conflict in Gaza has divided some of the traditionally democratic Arab American vote, with many people potentially casting protest votes against Vice President Harris because of the Biden administration's policies in Gaza.
And, you know, Donald Trump did make a point of making sure to visit and campaign in the Arab communities on this east side of the state. The numbers that we're seeing so far, do you see any pattern yet for Harris or Trump in Michigan?
Not as of yet. The initial polling suggested that Harris might have a single point advantage in Michigan broadly. We're not seeing enough numbers out of Detroit to determine whether or not that vote has gone home to the Democratic Party or if they are voting for third-party candidates as a matter of protest.
And Professor, what do you think are some of the top issues getting voters in perhaps this demographic and others to the polls?
So the human issues in the Gaza Strip, what many are classifying as horrendous civilian casualties, have been motivating for a lot of young people and obviously the Arab American community. Also, the conduct of American foreign policy, be it towards the border or be it towards our support of the nation of Ukraine in their campaign against Russia, have motivated voters across political ideological spectrums to become active in this election cycle.
Let's talk about that war in the UK, because Ukraine, Donald Trump said he would be able to end it quickly. What are your thoughts on that?
That is a very difficult promise to keep. Vladimir Putin has strong ideas about trying to take territory in Ukraine. Ukraine obviously is resisting that. Whether or not our support would continue under a Trump administration would be negligible, but I don't think that the cessation of our support would simply cause a Ukrainian capitulation overnight.
Political expert David Takitaki from Ferris State University. Thank you so much, Professor, for taking a few minutes with us.
Now, we know there have been some glitches at polling locations in West Michigan because of the high humidity, creating issues putting ballots through the tabulators.
We are told this happened in both Kent and Ottawa counties. 13 on your side's Jeremiah Brown is live in Grand Rapids. And Jeremiah, what do we know so far?
Yeah, good evening again, Josh and Juliet. Also, Muskegon County has also seen impacts from the humidity on ballots. Ottawa County Clerk Justin Roebuck told us earlier that they had some issues earlier this morning due to the humidity as they were trying to process those ballots, but that issue was quickly resolved. Same thing with Kent County and Nelson Township. The clerk tells us that the issue started when lines started to get pretty long around 3:30 in the afternoon. She said ballots started to swell when the temperatures and humidity went up naturally with the rain. Hoffman says they called a technician, and that issue was resolved in about 5 minutes. We also spoke to some voters who had reached out to our newsroom about this issue as well.
There's been a handful that have been upset. Most people are grateful. They understood. They smiled. They thanked the poll workers for doing their job. You know, when you have temperatures in the 70s and rain, you're going to have humidity, and it's going to cause the ballots to swell sometimes. And it happens.
I got here at about 4:30, and the line had backed up, and no one was coming out. No one was even able to vote because the last person who came out said, oh, they just shut the machines on, they're going to leave it off for a while because of humidity, they're having issues with it. And I'm like, humidity is not going to cause an error with a machine. But so we were out here about a half hour, and then some people started leaving.
And the Nelson Township clerk says that she understands some people may have been frustrated, but she says rest assured that those ballots will still be counted. Live in Grand Rapids, I'm Jeremiah Brown, 13 on your side.
In Muskegon County, election workers are busy counting the ballots right now.
And we have a crew out there right now giving us the latest on what's happening. We're going to 13 on your side's Callie Lichter, who's in Muskegon County right now. Callie, what can you tell us?
Josh, Juliet, just a little bit ago, we saw some workers tabulating those early in-person votes, and clerks and workers all across Muskegon County are tabulating those votes, waiting to bring them here to the county office. And like we've been saying all night, Muskegon County has been a historically blue county, but that's been slipping over the past few presidential elections. 20 years ago, John Kerry led Muskegon County by nearly 9,000 votes, and that total increased to nearly 24,000 in 2008 when Barack Obama took the county over John McCain. But since that 2008 election, the Democratic presidential hold has steadily decreased. In 2012, Barack Obama did lead the county over Mitt Romney, but only by a little under 14,000 votes, In 2016, saw the lead Hillary Clinton had over Donald Trump shortened to just over 1,000, which brings us to 2020 when the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump came down to just 500 votes. And this election has seen a heavy focus on that youth vote. We talked to one voter at Muskegon City Hall who says she wasn't registered until this morning and got motivated to register via social media.
I just did. I registered. I woke up and just registered today. I've been on TikTok all weekend looking at all the different opinions of people and stuff. I'm just like, I'm gonna go vote and stop having an opinion about something and just go and vote where my opinion matters.
Some analysts are saying that due to the county's support of Governor Gretchen Whitmer's amendment guaranteeing abortion access in 2022, it could signal increased Democrat voter numbers. And as I said, workers all over the county are tabulating those votes, waiting to bring them in, and we'll be here throughout the night bringing you updates. Live in Muskegon, I'm Callie Lichter, 13 on your side.
We want to look now at the 3rd Congressional District where incumbent Hillary Scholton is being challenged by Republican Paul Hudson. We have some numbers we can look at right now, I believe.
Yeah, what we can look at right now is that Scholton is, through the results that are being reported right now, Hillary Scholton is up 74% to Paul Hudson's 24%, a very highly watched race in the battle for congressional control after Scholton was managed to flip this seat a couple years ago. Very battleground back then, and we're waiting to see what will happen this year, whether she's able to solidify that or whether Hudson makes a Republican comeback in this region.
And 13 on your side's Micah Cho is at Hillary Scholton's watch party in Grand Rapids. Micah, how's it going there?
Well, Juliet, Congressman Hillary Scholton was on the stage behind me not too long ago thanking her supporters. Her speech really focused on a lot of her supporters' support and how they have been able to get her over the finish line rather than any real key issues touched on tonight. Again, this is really just a celebration. Let's kind of take a look at the party going on behind me. I mean, this is a party, the type of party that we've seen in for a lot of political candidates over the years. Loud music, lots of food, lots of drinks. I will say there is a very high energy here in this building right now between the congressman and also her supporters. And we actually just talked to her just a few minutes ago. Here's what she had to say about those supporters.
People here in West Michigan are hungry for a new kind of leadership. It's how we flipped this seat, and we have had record-breaking turnout in terms of our volunteers, the people who got out and voted. I mean, I just couldn't believe it, especially in these last few days of GOTV, every day when I would show up to the office and, there were just new people there ready to go knock doors and get this message out. We left it all on the field, and we're feeling incredibly strong.
And we'll be here for the rest of the night, keeping an eye on Hillary Scholton and Paul Hudson's race. We're now live in Grand Rapids. I'm Micah Cho, 13 on your side.
We continue our election night coverage live here on 13 Plus, and we have so much more to come.
Absolutely. Stay with us. We're going to take a quick break, and right after the break, we'll bring you much more as the results continue to come in from Battleground Michigan.
And we continue our live election night coverage on 13 Plus. I'm Juliet Dragos.
And I'm Josh Alburtus. We will be live here until 11, breaking down results as they come in and hearing from experts along the way.
Tonight, 13 is on your side this election night. We have crews spread out throughout the state. Lauren Baker's in Novi with the Republican Mike Rogers for Senate campaign. Julia Gorman in Detroit with Democrat Alyssa Slotkin's campaign. We also have crews across West Michigan. Micah Cho is covering the 3rd congressional race. Jeremiah Brown has a look at some voting glitches in West Michigan today. And Arlena Holland is looking at voting across Kent County. Callie Lichter is in Muskegon County. The polls in Michigan closed an hour and 42 minutes ago, except for a small portion of the western Upper Peninsula, which just closed a short time ago.
Yeah, just in the last hour, in fact, just because they're an hour behind on the time zone. But here in Michigan, hasn't been called yet. We've still got a lot of results to report. But the ones that have been called, you're seeing on your screen now, that's the national popular vote that's in so far. As you see, is still a lot more to go, 22%. But right now, former President Donald Trump leading the popular vote across the nation by 52 to 47% for Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris. And a lot of the races that have been called statewide in this race haven't really been of a big surprise yet, but we're still waiting on a lot of those key battlegrounds to be called to see where this race is going to shape up as we get later into tonight.
Yeah, as you said, 22% reporting, so we still have a lot of numbers to go. Earlier we were talking about the importance of social media. Our expert Professor Danielle Leake is from Johns Hopkins University. She's a lecturer there. She worked at Grand Valley State University, and she was educating us about social media and politics years ago. Now she knows so much more about it as well.
Especially it comes at such a key time right now with social media so into the political sphere right now. You get those ads and those messages everywhere you look on all of those different platforms. So we're grateful to have Professor Leakes with us to give us some of that unique perspective on this. Thank you, Professor, for taking time.
And so, Professor, what are you seeing now since we last talking about social media, what's going on, what's targeted, what's not? What are they saying on social media tonight?
Well, of course, right now everybody is speculating on what the current electoral college votes are saying about what the outcome of the race will be. So if you are awake and watching, you are certainly trying to talk about whether or not you can predict the outcome on the basis of what you're seeing in those battleground states. So that's one of the first types of messaging you're seeing. And if you feel strongly about one candidate or the other, you might be talking about what people have been wearing in their polling booths. So there's been a lot of talk about Mrs. Biden's pantsuit. Maybe you saw some of that.
I didn't see that one.
Oh my gosh. Well, that was quite a topic of conversation today, and it's still getting quite a number of hits. She wore an all red pantsuit when she voted, and that has created quite a buzz. And so there's a lot of people who are just really fired up and really excited about what's happening for their candidate. And as you kind of speculated earlier in tonight's broadcast, there are some people who are still trying to make sure that they are prepared to say what they need to say about the legitimacy of the polls if it comes down to that later on tonight or tomorrow morning.
Yeah, and Professor, you talked about a lot of people being fired up, and when we talked earlier, you talked to us about the ads or social media presence that has the most impact, you believed, came from those more emotional appeals to people. Kind of talk a little bit about that for people just joining us. You know, what are those most effective social media strategies that seem to be working the most when it comes to political campaigning or advertising?
Well, as you've already said, I mean, this is an election where people have really committed quite a bit of time. And with the rhetoric that was taking place towards the end of the campaign, people have felt not only that they committed to their candidate, but that their identity has really been invested in this election. And so no matter who wins, even at the presidential level, at the state level, or even in your local election, it's going to take a while for people to feel as if, you know, where they spent their time and where their voices were being spoken, that they've been able to be heard. And I think that we're seeing some of that in the posts that people are making tonight, feeling as if they need to make sure that no matter where things end up, that they need to feel as if where their opinion lies, that they have a place to make sure it's still going to be heard in whatever government is going to be in place in the next 4 years. And so there's a lot of concern about that being spoken out about on social media right now.
And we know that influencers, especially stars, music and movie and TV stars, have also been weighing in on social media. I'm thinking about in Michigan, Kid Rock and Eminem, they had a little back and forth there, but they were very friendly. But it was interesting to see those two actually communicating and responding to each other's social media.
Yeah. I mean, I think that just goes to show exactly what we were just talking about, which is this is one of those times where how we feel and when we decide to speak to one another on a social media platform really has a lot to do with how emotionally connected we are to the issues that are involved in our elections. And this is an election that has really brought that out for all of us, whether it has to do with our ethnic identity or our home state. Those are issues that really come out for us. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see a lot of that still playing out over the weeks that follow. Even if the election is called sooner than we thought it might be, I think people will still be talking about what happened and with each other for a long time, and they'll be doing that online.
Professor Leeks, thank you so much for taking a few minutes to share with us your expertise in the area. Really appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, try to get some sleep at some point, and we'll do this again soon, I'm sure.
You too. We want to go back to Kent County now.
Jeremiah Brown is at DeVos Place in downtown Grand Rapids, focusing on the city's mayoral race. Jeremiah, you had the chance, I understand, to sit down with Mayor Rosalind Bliss, the current mayor of the city, who is term limited this afternoon. What does she have to say to you?
I did. We're actually at the county clerk's office right now, and Mayor Bliss earlier, she told me today feels honestly pretty surreal for her. But real quick, we wanted to just say that we have seen election information from Rockford come into the clerk's office just a few minutes ago. Now back to the mayoral race here. David LeGrand is currently in the lead with more than 68% of the vote so far, and Sunita Lanier is currently around 30%, and that is with the partially reported data so far. Now, both candidates have been talking a lot about really similar issues: equity in development between downtown and the outer neighborhoods, transportation. Lanier has been clear about wanting to diversify means of transportation to kind of shuttle people from downtown to the neighborhood business districts. LeGrand has wanted to have conversations about building wealth in the community among the most marginalized. Both of them have addressed issues in housing, supporting rental caps, and also Lanier discussing community agreements that she has seen develop. And LeGrand has also been very clear about building more housing, help small and local developers build multi-unit housing in the area. Now back to the current mayor, Rosalind Bliss. She has until the end of this year, and I spoke with her earlier today, and I asked her about what has been her biggest memory and the thing that she's most proud of in her almost 20 years of service to the city. And she said that's a really hard answer for her to give.
You know, it's so hard for me to pick just one because I've worked on so many issues across the board, and I'm still working on issues right now. I remind people I'm mayor till the end of the year. So I'm in the midst of this 100 and 100 initiative where we're trying to get 100 individuals who've been chronically homeless housed in 100 days. We've done a lot of work around homelessness in our community, started a homeless outreach team, have worked with the county and supported the crisis stabilization unit, worked with community rebuilders to rapidly rehouse folks. So I feel good about some of the work we've done in that space. Clearly more to do. Public safety, you know, we have invested heavily into violence prevention efforts. In a mental health co-response team, we've seen our crime stats improve. So we've seen a reduction in overall crime in the city. We've done our community surveys, and we've seen progress across the board as well. I'm really proud of the work we've done around investing in trails and parks and green space and playgrounds for kids. And then you look at some of the work and developments downtown, from the river restoration to the river's edge redevelopments to the amphitheater and soccer stadium. All of those things I think everyone should be proud of.
And you spoke a lot about the number of projects that are taking place right now from downtown to the 3rd Ward, where we're seeing a lot of developments in the spheres of education, housing, and these are all things that she's really hoping that her successor will continue. She's told me that this year she's been to a lot of groundbreaking ceremonies, but it's her successor who's going to be at those ribbon cutting ceremonies. She gave a very heartfelt message today. We're going to have this full interview on our 13 Plus app later this week. I'm going to take it back to you guys, Juliet, live from downtown Grand Rapids. I'm Jeremiah Brown, 13 on your side.
So as Jeremiah was saying, the results that are in so far show David LeGrand ahead, but that's only partial results that we have so far.
Right. Still a lot to go. We'll see how that kind of turns out. But it's not just like the Grand Rapids area, the Kent County area that has a lot to do with these larger races like the presidency. Muskegon, as we've been talking about all night, historically pretty blue on the presidential level, but it's been getting narrower and narrower, and we're going to have to see how that shapes up over on the lakeshore as well.
Yes, we will. And we know that the election workers are busy tabulating those ballots, those results. So we want to check in with 13 on your side's Callie Lichter, who is there at the county clerk's office with an update.
Josh and Juliet, as I've been standing here for the past couple of minutes, there have been a few clerks in here dropping off ballot results. And like you said, they have been tabulating all night since those polls have closed. And also, like you mentioned, Muskegon County has been historically a blue county, but that's been slipping in past presidential elections. Turning to 2020, Muskegon County was a county that Joe Biden led by just 500 votes against Donald Trump. And the majority of Biden's votes in Muskegon County came from absentee ballots. Biden received 29,000 absentee votes in 2020. Trump received just 16,000, but again, that margin between them two was just 500 votes. And this election has seen a heavy focus on the youth vote. We talked to one voter at Muskegon City Hall who said she wasn't registered until this morning and got motivated to register after she opened her phone this morning and turned on TikTok.
I just did. I registered. I woke up and just registered today. I've been on TikTok all weekend looking at all the different opinions of people and stuff. I'm just like, I'm gonna go vote and stop having opinions about something and just go and vote where my opinion matters.
Looking towards those early voter, absentee voter numbers in Muskegon County, there was over 35,000 absentee ballots returned in the county out of 40,000 ballots sent. And like the Muskegon County Clerk Karen D. Bowie has said tonight, there was over 14,000 ballots cast during the early voting period. And like I mentioned earlier, there have been clerks in and out of here dropping off those tabulated votes, and we'll have an update for you later tonight. Live in Muskegon, I'm Callie Lichter, 13 on your side.
The changing demographic, growing population in Kent County has made it one of the counties across the country that could decide the election, and so many people are watching it tonight.
Absolutely. National importance there. Former President Donald Trump, as we've said throughout the night, won the county by 3 points in 2016, but President Joe Biden, Democrat, won it by 6 points in 2020.
13 on your side's Elena Holland has been in Kent County all night with the clerk. She's going to join us now live to tell us what the update is with the numbers there.
Hey. Yeah, hey guys, this is a really exciting place to be watching this election pan out here in Kent County. So here inside the administration building, we've seen local clerks coming in and dropping off their tabulations of, the local precincts. Those are now being counted here and tabulated at the county office, which is happening right now, and it could last for a while. I spoke to Kent County Clerk Lisa Posthumous-Lyons, who said in 2020, they were tabulating them until about 7 a.m. Now, this year, she does expect it to go a little bit faster. Still no real idea about what time that will happen, but it should be faster because of the ability to process those absentee ballots earlier leading up to the election. That's really sped things up on their end. You might be seeing if you're on Access Kent on the voting dashboard there, you might see some of the results coming in for the precincts. A lot of those are from the absentee ballots that they've been able to make sure are correct and tabulate those. So make sure you're looking at that if you're trying to keep up with all the numbers. That's mostly what they've been getting the numbers for at this time. One thing that's interesting too, the absentee ballot, she said it's not as many this year as it was in 2020. 2020 we had the pandemic, so a lot of people were having, using those absentee ballots. She said there were about 151,000 absentee ballots issued for this election, but again, that's less than it was in 2020. Here's more what she had to say about that.
I will say those absentee numbers really kind of plateaued after early voting started, and at the end of this cycle, what we've seen is a drop in absentee voting compared to 2020. But again, 2020 we were in the midst of a pandemic, so the fact that we issued 227,000 absentee ballots to the 52,000 this cycle, it's not necessarily surprising because we don't have the pandemic this year. We do have early voting this year. So it really remains to be seen.
So we will be checking in with the clerk momentarily here in the next couple hours and let you know the results as they come in. But for now, live in Kent County, Elena Holland, 13 on your side.
In the U.S. Senate race, Debbie Stabenow is retiring. Alyssa Slotkin, the Democrat, is hoping to replace her. Debbie Stabenow's at her watch party.
Yes, we are now getting word at that watch party. Debbie Stabenow is taking the stage and beginning to speak. Let's hear a bit of what she has to say.
And I'm just ready to make sure that we have a great, great night. And I got to tell you, I am so tired of thinking and hearing about Donald Trump. We need some Kamala. That's what we need. But I'm very, very honored to have had the opportunity to serve you in the United States Senate. And so I want to first say thank you. It's been my honor. It's been my honor to get up every day and suit up and be able to go and fight for you. It is now my honor and excitement to know I'm going to be passing the torch to somebody who loves Michigan as much as I do and is going to make sure that we continue the 1-2 punch for Michigan. Alyssa Slotkin is going to be a great United States Senator, right? There's no question about it. And I know that she has worked her heart out on this campaign. And I know that all of you have worked so hard. I am so proud of Michigan. You know, we get a chance to hear a lot about campaigns around the country. And I'm not exaggerating. Michigan has the best ground game in the country. We, with the One campaign, show them how to do it. We show them how to do it. And that's what all of you do. And all of you have taken money out of your pocket to give, and you've knocked doors, and you've made phone calls, and you've got online, and it's going to make a big, big difference tonight. So I just want to say thank you for all that you have done, for all that you will do. You know, after tonight, we still have to care about our democracy. We still have to care about our state. We still have to work together to move forward on all the things that we think are so very important. And we will do that together, right? We will do that together. And I'm excited, not only in making history with my dear friend Alyssa Slotkin, and by the way, her family is up here. Where's the Slotkin family? We got a whole bunch of Slotkins here who came out to help, and it's so exciting to see that. And I know they're so proud of her as well. But when I look around the room and I see the girls and the boys, and so I'm very excited about making history tonight with Kamala Harris. So there's a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to say thank you for. You are the best, and there is no question in my mind that we're going to go on in Michigan and we're going to show them how to get things done. So let's go. Thank you.
U.S. Senator Debbie Stabenow, who is leaving and decided not to run for re-election and retire instead, speaking at Alyssa Slotkin's watch party.
Very hotly contested U.S. Senate race there, and a lot more to come as results continue to come in from Michigan and around America tonight. We'll have more right after the break.
The results continue to come in on this election night. Thanks for joining us on 13 Plus. I'm Juliet Dragos.
And I'm Josh Alburtus. We will be live here until 11, breaking down results as they come in and hearing from experts along the way.
And tonight, 13 is on your side with crews spread out all over the state. Our Lauren Baker's in Novi with Republican Mike Rogers' Senate campaign. Julia Gorman in Detroit with Democrat Alyssa Slotkin's campaign. And we have crews all over West Michigan as well. Micah Cho covering the 3rd congressional race. Jeremiah Brown looking at some voting issues in West Michigan today. Elena Holland has a look at voting across Kent County, and our Kelly Lichter is in Muskegon County. The polls in Michigan closed just 2 hours ago, 2 hours and 9 minutes, and except for a small portion of the western Upper Peninsula, which closed about an hour ago.
Yeah, so we are seeing those results slowly pour in across Michigan and across the country. If you look at your screen now, that is the current state of the national popular vote for president. About a third reporting so far from those results. Republican former President Donald Trump ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris, Democratic Vice President, by 6 points, 52 to 46 at this point in time.
We want to go now. We have been following the U.S. Senate race, and right now our Julia Gorman is in Detroit, and she has a guest there, a live guest with her, Senator Gary Peters. Were you talking to, Julia? Oh, the Lieutenant Governor, Gilchrist. Garland Gilchrist.
Julia, good evening. Yes, a little spur of the moment. We've got the Lieutenant Governor here. Yes, Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. I know you've been talking with a lot of media outlets. Talk to me a little bit about the energy in the room right now here at this watch party for Alyssa Slotkin.
Well, the energy in the room matches the energy that we built throughout this campaign. I mean, the team that's been working on behalf of Alyssa and of Harris Walls and of Democrats up and down the ticket has just been incredible. It's the biggest team we've ever built. We did 3 million voter contacts just this weekend between Saturday and Monday. I mean, it speaks to just how excited people are to have a conversation with someone and invite them to be part of this future, to be part of this victory. And so we have so much gratitude for them, and we thank everyone. And a lot of those folks, you know, are represented here tonight. And so we're thanking everybody here for being part of the movement.
And I mean, as far as you and the governor go, if Alyssa Slotkin were to come away with this win tonight or over the next few days, what would you guys be most excited for her to implement, you know, here for our state of Michigan and across the country?
Well, it's always important to have allies in Washington, D.C. that we can work with. And having Alyssa build on the foundation that Debbie Stabenow laid to be our senator just knows that we have someone we can pick up on the phone and call, someone who we can trust to look out for Michiganders' interests, someone who we can trust to make the right decisions for our democracy as a whole and be a great representative of our state on a national and international stage. That's the same thing that we're going to happen when we continue to have an ally in the White House, in Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, someone who's been to Michigan, who's listened to Michiganders, who's prioritized our challenges and have turned them into policies that'll help our people get closer to success. These are problem solvers, and that's what I want to have in a partner. I'm an engineer. I'm trained to solve problems. Alyssa Slotkin's been trained to solve problems, and so I'm excited to continue to work with her in this new capacity.
And obviously we are waiting on, you know, so many votes still to come in. It really is too early to tell anything, but at this point, you know, as polls continue to close, how are you feeling right now with the numbers that we do know and just moving forward, waiting for those additional votes to come in?
I feel confident again. I'm confident in the work that we've done. That's what I said to this crowd on the microphone, that thank you, you've done the work. Now we're waiting for the election workers, the ballot tabulators to do their work, and I thank them for working so hard. I spent a lot of time all across Southeast Michigan today thanking the people who are doing that hard work of democracy. So it's in their hands to make sure that our ballots are counted safely and securely. I know they're going to do it.
And I mean, when it comes to the visits that we've seen just in the last week, we have seen all of these front runners visiting constantly. It really feels like every other day. I know you know that. You know, we're a battleground state. We're in the spotlight all the time as a state here in Michigan. You know, what has that been like this election cycle, this presidential campaign for you in your seat?
Well, it feels good to know that the values of the people of Michigan are front and center in this election, because they should be. Those values of hard work and resilience and determination and love for community and country that embody Michiganders, those are the highest and best ideals of America when we're living at our best. And so candidates need to come here and listen to Michiganders. And frankly, you know, Alyssa Slotkin has built her career on listening to Michiganders. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz spent a lot of time here listening to Michiganders. Unlike the alternatives, you know, Mike Rogers flip-flopped on Michiganders more times than I can count. Donald Trump comes here and lies and insults Michiganders and Michigan communities. That's a big contrast. And so we're proud of people. We're all over Michigan having the conversations with voters, about how clear this choice has been, and we're going to now wait for those results to come in.
And as folks are watching tonight, last question for you. Anything you want folks at home to know as, whichever way they sway, whichever way they're looking for, candidates to win, anything else you want people at home here in our state to know tonight?
First and foremost, thank you for participating in the political process and choosing to vote and getting the people in your life to vote. That's the most important work you can do as a citizen. I also want people to recognize that it's the government's job to be responsive to them. So continue to stay engaged beyond Election Day. I enjoy that kind of work. I spent part of my life and career as a community organizer. That means helping people understand how to advocate for their government to be more responsive to them. So I welcome that energy and welcome that feedback and welcome that conversation. There's a reason I spend time in all 83 counties in Michigan, because I care about what Michiganders think. And I want to have partners in public service like Alyssa Slotkin who do as well.
Lieutenant Governor, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Juliet, we will send it back to you again, just listening to the Lieutenant Governor talk about how exciting this race is at this watch party for Representative Alyssa Slotkin, looking for that ever contingent, ever competitive, highly contentious Senate seat recently vacated by longtime Senator Debbie Stabenow. I'll send it back to you guys.
Right, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist as Alyssa Slotkin's party. Josh?
And that race, of course, as Julia mentioned, so hotly contested right now. The latest results we're getting into the studio, about 9%, 10% reporting around that range. 50% for Democrat Alyssa Slotkin, over 47% for Mike Rogers. But as we've been saying all night, that is far from set in stone. Much more counting to be done at this hour.
Yeah, it shows 9% reporting. We are getting more vote totals, though, in Grand Rapids, where there's a mayoral race.
Yes, indeed.
We want to go to Jeremiah Brown. He is live in Grand Rapids, and he's been watching those numbers as they come in.
Yeah, Juliet and Josh, right now David LeGrand is at about 68% of the votes. That is partially reported data. Sunita Lanier is a little over 30%, but right now David LeGrand is in the lead. Both of them have been campaigning on key issues such as transportation, housing, and making sure there's equitable development between downtown and the outer neighborhood. So let's take a look at what they have to say about that equity real quick. So Lanier says that they are still needing to find a right balance in the city between growing downtown and growing the outer neighborhoods. She mentioned the Third Ward Equity Fund that she saw started when she was serving as a Third Ward commissioner, which was created to kind of address and correct the historical underfunding that we have seen in the Third Ward. LeGrand talked about the Downtown Development Authority, which was developed in the 1970s, and he says he said the city should look at Detroit as an example, where they're having conversations about capping the tax increases that they can spend on downtown. And in the mayoral debate, he talked about possibly having a similar conversation here to make sure that the revenue is being spent equitably between downtown and the outer neighborhood. So now let's also look at public safety. Lanier said that was a key topic that really prompted her to first run for public office as a Third Ward commissioner. When she said a shooting took place at a nearby elementary school, she spoke about the Safe Alliances for Everyone task force during the mayoral debate, which brings together law enforcement, local officials, the prosecutor's office, and different community organizations to look at policy changes and ways to provide mental health resources and educational resources for those in the community. LeGrand said that in that debate that the city can better triage and respond to incidents that don't always require a armed response, and redefining policing as peacekeeping and problem solving in the community. Now, I was able to catch up with current Mayor Rosalind Bliss, and her term goes until the end of the year, and she was very clear about her message to her successor about continuing the work in developing housing and continuing to develop Grand Rapids as a strong city in the region.
You know, it's so hard for me to pick just one because I've worked on so many issues across the board, and I'm still working on issues right now. I remind people I'm mayor till the end of the year. So I'm in the midst of this 100 and 100 initiative where we're trying to get 100 individuals who've been chronically homeless housed in 100 days. We've done a lot of work around homelessness in our community, started a homeless outreach team, have worked with the county and supported the crisis stabilization unit, worked with community rebuilders to rapidly rehouse folks. So I feel good about some of the work we've done in that space. Clearly more to do. Public safety, we have invested heavily into violence prevention efforts in a mental health co-response team. We've seen our crime stats improve, so we've seen a reduction in overall crime in the city. We've done our community surveys, and we've seen progress across the board as well. I'm really proud of the work we've done around investing in trails and parks and green space and playgrounds for kids. And then you look at some of the work and developments downtown, from the river restoration to the river's edge redevelopments to the amphitheater and soccer stadium. All of those things I think everyone should be proud of.
And results are continuing to come in from precincts across the city, and you can find those results on our website, 13onyourside.com. Right now, live in downtown Grand Rapids, I'm Jeremiah Brown, 13 on your side.
I'm going to go back to the U.S. Senate race now, because we just saw Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist at Alyssa Slotkin's watch party. Alyssa Slotkin has not talked yet. However, on the Republican side, Mike Rogers has already addressed his supporters once. So
yes, we did see that earlier tonight, and now we're getting some more look into that watch party. 13 on your side's Lauren Baker is at Rogers' watch party in Novi. Lauren, what is the mood there like right now?
So things are looking pretty much the same as they have the past couple of hours, Juliet and Josh. A lot of energy here, excited for what could happen tonight. Like you just mentioned, Mike Rogers did speak earlier. His message to voters is that this was going to be a long night. The race is very tight right now, and he says that he really wants voters to stick to the end. Take a look at this video. After he got done talking on stage, he actually got down the floor and started talking to his supporters, many of them saying that they're excited to see what he could possibly do if he is elected as the senator for representing this state. And a lot of them say that they believe that he'll hit on issues like the economy, immigration, and getting more money to create more jobs here in Michigan. We talked to one voter who says that no matter how things look right now, he's ready to accept whatever happens tonight.
Have to. You know, law is law. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Trump will landslide. I really do. People are sick of the same old, you know. We're dumping our tax into foreign wars for no reason. You know, what do we get out of that? You know, we're shipping our car companies over to different countries. We're losing jobs. You know, it just seems ridiculous to me.
And like we've mentioned before, this is going to be a tight race all night long, so we're going to be keeping an eye on this race. Right now, both Slotkin and Rogers neck and neck. Many people saying it's really going to come down to the wire on this race. Reporting live in Novi for 13 on your side, I'm Lauren Baker.
We're going to go back now to one of our experts. Joining us right now is Professor Marjorie Sawbar Thompson. She's a political science professor at Wayne State University. Thank you for being here, Professor.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time, Professor. We're going to get to, no matter who wins tonight, it's still very much up in the air, but we will have a new president sworn in on January 20th. What will the transition of power look like from Biden to Trump or to Harris?
Well, I think it'll be a lot bigger difference, obviously, if it moves from Biden to Trump, that anytime you shift political parties, you have a complete replacement of all sorts of cabinet level positions, and you know, the executive branch is vast. It's just huge. Usually the Washington Post has like a little tracking device on how many of the thousands of positions the new president has managed to name. And when you're moving from, you know, one political party to another, it's almost everybody is going to be replaced, but it still takes months. Sometimes you're looking at it in June or July after the election, and it's still only 75% of the positions are full. So it will be a massive change if we move in that direction. I'm not sure that it will be as big a change if we move from Biden to Harris, because she probably would be willing to leave some people in place for a while she figures out who she wants to replace, what changes she wants to make. But a lot of people have been talking throughout this election that it's the Biden-Harris administration, as if a vice president is sort of a part of some sort of a coalition of executives. The vice president used to be, until this election rhetoric, always considered somebody who does formalities, goes to state funerals, does certain things on behalf of the president, but isn't really an independent actor. And in my political science classes, especially after some of the early things with the debates and some of the things that were coming out, it was like people were actually bursting out laughing when we were quoting things back that had been said, in terms of questions and so on. So I think actually there will be change, but it might be a more gradual change because it would be within the same political party. I often try and explain to my students that politics is a team sport. And in this country, we've gotten very fixated on personalities. And so we have sort of a cult of personality around some political candidates. And really what you want to look at is a president as potentially more like a coach, somebody who can pick good players, put together something with good team chemistry, it is involved in the sort of vision that brings together folks that can collaborate and solve problems, and it just isn't so single person focused. And I think it's a really major misunderstanding that we have about the political system at this point.
Well,
and so what you're doing is hiring a team, and if the team is sort of a transition from one of the coaches who's been involved and the head coach resigns and another coach moves up, there's going to be a different kind of transition than if you bring somebody in from outside and they clear out the whole coaching staff.
All right, Professor, we have time for one more quick question, and it's about Michigan and the state legislature. The balance of power could change hand. What is the likelihood it'll happen? And if it does, what changes are expected? And we have time for a quick answer.
I think everything is a 50-50 coin toss. So the probability is 50-50. It could go either way. And if the balance of power changes, then we'll have divided government, and you'll see a lot fewer things that anybody will be able to do. We get gridlock.
All right, Professor Thompson, thank you so much for your insight and a really good explanation for us.
Thank you.
And here on the west side, it's not just the state legislature we're taking a look at, but also the race for Congress. The 3rd Congressional District here in West Michigan is considered very important to that balance of power.
Yes, and Congresswoman Hillary Scholton is running for re-election, and our Micah Cho is at her watch party right now. He joins us live with an update there.
Yeah, Congressman Scholton was on the stage behind me about 9 o'clock, and her message was basically focusing on her supporters and thanking them for everything throughout this race, rather than just focusing on the key messages that she's been talking about for the past election cycle. And it was a very positive vibe, a very positive speech that she gave earlier tonight. And the party that she was throwing, where all this is wrapping up, it was loud music, lots of food, lots of drinks, something we've seen similar into these campaign parties here. Now, this is Congresswoman Scholton's 2nd election for the past few months. She's been in the race against Republican Paul Hudson, and she defeated Republican John Gibbs in 2022 with 50% of the vote. Now, Congressman Scholton told us about a half hour ago that if she were to win this 2nd election, it would be because of her supporters.
People here in West Michigan are hungry for a new kind of leadership. It's how we flipped this seat, and we have had record-breaking turnout in terms of our volunteers, the people who got out and voted. I mean, I just couldn't believe it, especially in these last few days of GOTV, every day when I would show up to the office and, there were just new people there ready to go knock doors and get this message out. We left it all on the field and we're feeling incredibly strong.
And at about 11 o'clock, we'll be hearing from Paul Hudson and what he thinks about this race over the past few months. For now, live in Grand Rapids, I'm Micah Cho, 13 on your side.
Thank you so much, Micah. And that race shaping up before our very eyes tonight. We have some of the more latest results from that 3rd Congressional District here in West Michigan. Incumbent Democrat Congresswoman Hillary Scholton. The Congresswoman is currently ahead with 61% of the vote to Paul Hudson's 36%, with about 39% reporting.
Muskegon County, we keep talking about that as well because it is a very important county. Kent and Muskegon people are watching that. And our Callie Lichter is live there with an update on how it's going with the ballot counting.
Hi, sorry, we just got Karen here, Muskegon County Clerk Karen D. Bowie, who we've been talking to throughout the night here. And over the past couple of hours since these polls have closed, we've seen the clerks in Muskegon County come in and out through that door. Can you kind of explain, what they've been here doing?
Well, they've been bringing in their tabulated results from the election, and of course you can see that there's security here at the door to ensure their safety, and they're bringing in their V drives and their tape totals and their ballots, and all of that will be taken by Judge Hoops, who is our presiding judge, once all of the townships and the cities have brought in all the results, and he will take those ballots along with his police escort back to the Muskegon County courthouse and secure those until Thursday, when they will be retrieved and our Board of Canvassers will begin certifying our election.
And I know just from what I've seen, it's not like the clerks are just coming in and dropping them on a table. There is a process that needs to be
There is a process, yes.
through.
They have to sign that what they're bringing in and verify what they're bringing in, their tabulator information, their V drives, their empty V drives. Everything has to be brought in here on election night. And then once that's retrieved, then our election clerk and our wonderful staff, Jeannie Pizzette over there that's helping us, will upload that into our system so that our community and our candidates can see exactly how the vote totals are going. They can go to our website and keep refreshing and seeing the vote totals as they accumulate.
And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier when I've talked to you throughout the night, but, voting today has gone pretty smoothly.
It has. I am so excited about the precincts had a wonderful turnout. Each one did. There were no major incidents in our precinct. Everyone was safe. Our workers, our voters, the voters were well behaved. So we are really pleased at this election. This is our first year of early voting. So all of this is kind of a nuance to us. And so we are very, very excited about the success of this election.
And I know you have a long night ahead of you. I know just before we went live, I heard that not even, half of the townships and cities have gotten their, tabulated votes back.
Right, yeah. We're going to be here for a very long time, and that's okay. We're prepared. We're ready to be here all night if we need to ensure that all the election results are received in a manner in which we can upload them into our system so that our candidates and our community can see exactly what the vote totals are here in Muskegon County.
All right. I know you have a lot to get to tonight, but thank you for being here and talking to me.
Thank you.
And we'll still be here live at the Muskegon County Clerk's office and live in Muskegon. I'm Callie Lichter, 13 on your side.
And the ballots and the votes continue to be tabulated in Kent County as well right now.
Yes, and we hear that we have someone joining us who can speak a lot more to that on the ground in the process. 13 on your side's Elena Holland just talked with the Kent County Clerk and joins us from downtown Grand Rapids. Elena, what can you tell us?
Hey guys, so yeah, we're here at the county admin building where they are tabulating those votes. We've been seeing some of these local township and city clerks coming in and dropping those off here. Don't listen to me talk about it. Let's talk to Lisa Posthumus-Lyon. She's the Kent County clerk. So what's happening right now?
Well, we are just in the middle of receiving all of our results. As you mentioned, we've got our clerks coming in. They're delivering our early voting results and our in-precinct results. We're just steadily being able to report these. We do have on our website 70 out of 74 precincts for the Grand Rapids City results. That's not including early voting, and it's not including what results will be coming from the DeVos Place Voting Center. So things are moving. We've got a lot more to go, but again, it's nice to have these results coming in so the public can see exactly where we're at, and we're just going to keep going and make sure that our reporting, as we get the results, you'll get the results.
Yeah, we were talking just a little bit ago about how, in 2020, you guys were still going until about 7 a.m. What do you expect this year, and how is it a little bit different?
I expect a lot earlier than 7 a.m. I don't want to give a time. I have one in mind, but I'm still not quite there. I'm optimistic. I think we'll be several hours before 2020's results came in. A lot of that has to do simply with the ability to have been able to pre-process our absentee ballots this year. That has been an extreme help, especially in the city of Grand Rapids, where we had 30-some thousand absentee voters. So that has been a big help. A lot of it has to do also, admittedly, our absentee voting numbers are down from where they were in 2020. We issued roughly 151,000 absentee ballots, and in 2020, again with the pandemic, we were at 227,000. So it's less ballots we're having to process, more time to be able to process, and that means earlier results for the public.
Let's talk about security for a moment here. I know you mentioned there's a secure network, something separate to keep these tabulations, keep these results secure. Can you talk a little more about that?
Yeah. So when the clerks bring in their results from the precincts and the early voting sites, those are on what we call media cards, and that's got the election results on them from each of the precincts. We will upload those results onto our separate and secure election management system. Then we go to a separate, our public network and download those results onto our public website. That's how that works. And what we'll do is those results that we put on our management system, the clerks, as you mentioned, are bringing in not just the media cards, but all of the paper material, which includes the results tapes for each of the precincts. So they're going to review, the Board of Canvassers, the results tapes with those precinct results that we're reporting in our management system to make sure that they match. This is how we assure that the election was accurate. And then at the end of the day, also, I mentioned these paper materials. We also have the paper ballots, which we'll use for any recounts that may be requested. We keep those for 2 years. Up to almost 2 years after the election. So at some point, once the election is certified and the results are official, those become public information, so people can actually see the paper ballots too.
I remember being there in 2020 upstairs here when you guys were doing that. So you've got a long night ahead of you still. What's happening now between now and hopefully not quite 7 a.m.?
Again, we're just going to be in constant communication with our local clerks who still have to report. They are putting a lot of paperwork together from all of their precincts, so we know that takes time. But yeah, between now and then, we're just going to continue monitoring what's going on in our townships and cities that still have to report, and we're going to get those results uploaded and then reported out to the public.
Perfect. Well, I'll let you get back to work. I know you've got a long night ahead of you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Well, we'll check back in a little bit too, and keep updated. We've got results on our website. You can keep watching us. You can watch Access Kent. There's lots of information on there. But for now, live in Grand Rapids, Elena Holland, 13 on your side.
A very detailed explanation there from the Kent County Clerk on the process of tabulating the votes and how much easier that process is this year because of the absentee ballots and the early in-person voting.
So we might be expecting those, just as she said, a little little bit earlier. Hopefully, potentially,
Yeah.
we might be in for a little bit earlier of a result there. But we are also paying attention to those larger statewide races outside of Kent County as well. One of those, the U.S. Senate race, Alyssa Slotkin and Republican Mike Rogers.
So we want to go to Alyssa Slotkin's watch party. Our 13 on your side's Julia Gorman is there. And Julia, any sign of Alyssa Slotkin speaking yet?
That is the question on my mind as well, Juliet and Josh. We have still yet to see her take the stage. We do know she's here. She's been here for well over an hour, but we have not heard from her just yet. So you can definitely feel like folks are hoping to hear from her soon. They've kind of been flashing the lights up and down a couple of times, getting people excited, but not heard from her just yet. However, we have heard from several other big key players government-wise here in Michigan. We've heard from Senator Gary Peters. We most recently just heard from longtime Senator Debbie Stabenow, who, of course, Alyssa Slotkin is looking to replace after Stabenow announced her retirement earlier this year. We've also heard from U.S. Secretary of Transportation Steve Buttigieg, who spoke, now a Michigander, who spoke just on the importance of this race at the U.S. Senate level and, of course, also the presidential level with Kamala Harris running for that spot. We have also heard from several, more local officials like the mayor of Detroit, but again, waiting to hear from Slotkin. Of course, we do want you to be able to listen in a little bit to what Debbie Stabenow had to say. So take a listen to just a snippet of her talk earlier tonight.
Very honored to have had the opportunity to serve you in the United States Senate. And so I want to first say thank you. It's been my honor. It's been my honor to get up every day and suit up and be able to go and fight for you. It is now my honor and excitement to know I'm going to be passing the torch to somebody who loves Michigan as much as I do and is going to make sure that we continue the 1-2 punch for Michigan. Alyssa Slotkin is going to be a great United States Senator, right?
We also heard from the Lieutenant Governor. We did a live interview with him in our last half hour or so. He's feeling really good about this race, really hopeful about this race in just having, the Democratic ticket from top to bottom from folks here in Michigan, and then, of course, Kamala Harris as well taking home that presidential spot. So he is very excited, feeling very hopeful. Also made mention that he's really just thankful to Michiganders. He's spent a lot of time talking with people up and down the state just about the importance of all of these races, and he really is so appreciative of all the work that Michiganders have done, volunteers, voters, just to make their voices heard and put their voice out there in this election, as it does involve all of us here in the state of Michigan, and these races also impacting people across the country as well when we talk on the federal level. So that's just a little bit of what he had to say. But again, we are waiting for Alyssa Slotkin to speak as we approach the 11 o'clock hour. Let's see, 10:41. So hopefully we'll hear from her soon. She is here tonight along with Debbie Stabenow, Gary Peters, Pete Buttigieg, lots of key players. So as soon as we do hear her speak, we will, of course, let you know. For now, live here in Detroit, I'm Julia Gorman, 13 on your side.
So now that means the polls have been closed here for 2 hours and 41 minutes, and those votes continue to be counted and come into us so we can see the latest numbers.
They do, and as we've been saying all night, nothing's set in stone yet because we have so many more ballots expected to be counted, but the race for president slowly taking shape as we get some of those results, and you're taking a look at your screen now at the national vote across the United States for President of the United States. Former President Donald Trump currently leading Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris with 38% reporting, 53% to 46% at this time.
We're going to take a quick break now. We thank you for sticking with us for 13 on your side's election night coverage on our 13 Plus app. We're going to switch over now to the ABC national election coverage.
And we'll be back at 11 on our streaming app 13 Plus. We'll see you then.
This doesn't have to go Republican. It has to go super Republican. This is really where he has to super energize his base. And then also, you know, Rick was talking about Milwaukee. Former President Donald Trump campaigning here also multiple times. Look, traditionally, yes, this does go towards Democrats, of course. Vice President Kamala Harris right now, 66%. Let's see where she is with the 538 benchmark. Just under that right now. But former President Donald Trump, Waukesha is where he earns the most votes, 2016, 2020. The second highest for him is Milwaukee. So he still has to run up the score in Milwaukee in order to do well.
All right, this is the key number at this hour, 6,500 votes between them. Donald Trump leading in Wisconsin tonight. We're going to keep our eye on all three of these states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. Don't go away. We'll dive into these numbers even more right after the break.
Teachers, no child is to be sent to the principal's office today. Kids, if you want to do crime, now's the time. Happy first day of school.
Yes. Weren't there like 4 more of these?
Yeah, we were robbed.
Hey, buy 3, get 1 free. I'ma call your mother on you. Bring the rest back here, boy.
Right now, votes are being counted, and tomorrow, GMA is right there with the morning's first news and
breaking developments from our powerhouse political team.
Tomorrow morning,
when the story matters most,
a special edition of Good Morning America with the election coverage you need.
this is ABC News coverage of Election Night 2024. Here again, David Muir.
Welcome back to ABC News Live coverage of election night here. We do want to call another state, Kansas. The 6 electoral votes of Kansas will go to former President Donald Trump. In Nebraska tonight, Donald Trump picks up 3 electoral votes. And John Carl, explain to the audience how that works in Nebraska. They split these up.
They split them up by congressional district and then overall winner. So there is a single electoral vote coming out of Nebraska. It's in Omaha. Sometimes they call it Obamaha because Obama won it, helped him win the presidency in 2008. So look, if we're looking at a scenario where Kamala Harris's path to winning the presidency is to win the blue wall and not to win any of the other battleground states in the Sun Belt, it would be 270 votes to 268 votes. The single vote that would put her over the top would be in Omaha. It would be that split electoral vote in the state of Nebraska. Of course, we got a long way to go tonight before we get to that point. But that's why Republicans tried to change the rules in Nebraska. Lindsey Graham made a trip all the way out to Nebraska to try to convince
this election cycle.
Yes, this election cycle. Donald Trump got involved. He called some of the state legislators to try to get them to change the rules there. They didn't change the rules, and that could be a very pivotal single electoral vote.
Could be. But it's early. It's early.
We got a long way to go.
So let's go back to some of these Senate races. We want to call a few more races here. In New Jersey, we can call the Senate race now for the Democrat. Congressman Andy Kim, a 3-term congressman running for Senate. He wins. He's going to now take over the seat that was once held by Robert Menendez until he was convicted. So Congressman Andy Kim wins in New Jersey. In Virginia, seeking a 3rd term, Senator Tim Kaine has been reelected in Virginia, though the race has not been called in Virginia on the presidential level, which is quite extraordinary for this time of the night. In Texas at this hour, we can say Republican Senator Ted Cruz, who was seeking a 3rd term, has been reelected to the Senate. He'd been challenged by Congressman Colin Allred, of course, former Baylor University Tennessee Titans football player, a 3-term congressman himself. He had campaigned on so many issues, reproductive rights, one of them. Lindsay, you interviewed him in just the last week or two, and the Democrats really thought he had some prospects there. They were putting some late money into the campaign.
As you know, David, football is a little bit more of a popular pastime in Texas than politics is, and Colin Allred really staked a lot on that. Even his campaign ads really started on the football field, ended on the football field. He talked about how he'd taken down a lot tougher opponents than Ted Cruz before. But look, this really was an uphill battle for him. It's been 30 years to Election Day when a Democrat was able to win a statewide position in the state of Texas. And so really, this was a fierce, it shouldn't have been really when you think about it, but Ted Cruz has a pretty high unpopularity rate in the state of Texas. But for Colin Allred, this is really a disappointment. He actually thought that he was going to be able to do it. And do want to give a shout out to Andy Kim, the first Korean American to ever be a U.S. senator.
Now he'll represent New Jersey in the Senate. No question. Let's get right to John Quinones on the ground in Texas. John, what do you make of the news?
Well, this is one of the most closely watched races in the country, David. The incumbent Republican, Ted Cruz, once a presidential candidate himself, challenged by 3-term Democratic congressman and former, like Lindsay said, former NFL linebacker Colin Allred. They campaigned bitterly in the state over women's reproductive rights, the border, transgender rights. Cruz calling Allred too liberal for Texas. In the end, amidst a changing political landscape here in Texas, Ted Cruz survived the challenge just a few minutes ago. In his victory speech, Cruz specifically thanked Latino voters in this state, which he says have proven all the political prognosticators wrong.
John Quinones on the ground there in Texas. John, thank you. And look at the margin there. That's a much bigger margin than even Beto O'Rourke when he took on Ted Cruz. Came almost within 2 points of defeating Ted Cruz, Rachel.
Yeah, within 2 points, much bigger margin this time. And that is because Colin Allred really underperformed in some of the big cities. So let's take Harris County. This is home to Houston. You can see the 538 benchmark that we have has him at